Chapter 892. Sha Yutong ignored the strange eyes around him and Lin Sun's cold and murderous eyes. He came to the field and sighed, "Lin Sun, although you want to break all ties with me and draw a clear line between us, I can't be just because you are heartless. After all, we come from the same place. I won't watch you offend people you shouldn't offend." Many talents in the field realized that Sha Yutong came from the mortal world like Lin Sun. "Lin Sun, you'd better take a step back and apologize to Child Yu and Miss Ji. Others don't know, but I know your background." Sha Yutong looked solemn and considerate for Lin Sun. But the more he behaved like this, the more Lin Sun felt sick and disgusted. He knew that Sha Yutong would never have good intentions by jumping out at this time. However, he was really confused. He had never offended this guy. Why did this guy make things difficult for him again and again? Because of this, Lin Sun suppressed his killing intent and didn't attack Sha Yutong immediately. He wanted to see what this guy wanted to do. The background of Demon Lin? All the talents in the field pricked up their ears and became curious. Since the rise of Demon Lin, in just a few months, he had shocked the West Hung world and attracted the attention of the world. He had become a well-known peerless figure in the world. He rose too quickly, like a comet streaking across the sky. Some people suspected that he had deceived the world to gain fame, and that he didn't live up to his reputation. But in the end, it was proven that he indeed had the qualifications to be arrogant, and that he was absolutely worthy of the title Unmatched Chosen of Heaven. However, his background were still a mystery to this day, and no one could give an accurate answer to this question. This naturally made people curious. A young man from the lower dimensions that wasn't well known in the past was able to rise domineeringly in the West Hung region that was filled with geniuses, and he'd merely used less than half a year to become renowned throughout West Hung and become a peerless figure that was the center of attention. This itself seemed to be extremely unbelievable, and it was like a miracle. Facing the attention of the crowd, Sha Yutong became more and more complacent, but he still maintained a solemn look on his face. He looked at Lin Sun and said, "At that time, you were just a countryside boy from a remote village with mediocre aptitude. It was hard for you to kill beasts. If I hadn't helped you at that time, I'm afraid you wouldn't have survived until now." Everyone's eyes narrowed slightly. Back then, this fellow actually saved Demon God Lin's life? Everyone couldn't help but look at Lin Sun, but Lin Sun's face was cold and calm, without any emotional fluctuations. "What are you trying to say?" Lin Sun asked. "Don't you understand?" Sha Yutong frowned. "Do you really think that you can run amok and act lawlessly after obtaining a great fortune from the ultimate, one of the 4 ancient Tao ruins?" When he spoke up to hear, he slapped his forehead and said, "Oh, right. That's not all. Your greatest reliance is probably that saint artifact you obtained from the bottomless ruins, right? However, don't forget that this is the realm of ancient desolation, where experts are as numerous as trees in a forest. Even though you have good fortune and a saint treasure, if you don't restrain yourself, you're bound to get yourself killed." His words were sonorous and forceful, powerful and resonating. However, the expressions of all the strong people present changed, and they looked at Lin Sun with a strange expression. The ultimate. It was one of the 4 ancient Tao ruins, the most mysterious and unknown. It hid ancient treasures that were enough to make sages crazy. As for Fiend Celestial Lin, he had once entered the sinkhole. Moreover, according to Sha Yutong, Demon God Lin had not only entered the ultimate, but had also obtained a great fortune and obtained a holy treasure. In an instant, all the strong people remembered the rumor about Demon God Lin a few days ago. It was said that the reason why he could rise from a humble countryside boy in the mortal world to the West Hung world was that he had obtained a great fortune and had a saint treasure in his hand. Could it be that the rumor was true? The whole audience was silent. All the people present had different thoughts in their mind. Even peerless figures such as Yu Linkong, Ji Xingyao, Mu Jianting, and Lei Qianjun felt a little strange at the moment and looked at Lin Sun in a different way. Blazing. At this moment, Lin Sun felt that many strong people's eyes were blazing. When they looked at him, it was as if they were staring at a peerless treasure. At this time, he finally understood why Sha Yutong jumped out at this time. He wanted to provoke the crowd and point the spearhead at him. This guy is wicked. In the distance, Bai Lingshi was also keenly aware of the change in the atmosphere. She couldn't help but change her expression slightly and become resentful. Sha Yutong absolutely did it on purpose. The seemingly high-sounding words actually contained evil intentions. He wanted to make the crowd regard Lin Sun as a prey. Are you done? Lin Sun's black eyes were like an abyss, surging with a cold luster. From this moment on, he could no longer forgive Sha Yutong. What? Are you still going to be stubborn? Can't my kind advice make you repent at all? Sha Yutong was displeased, but in fact, he was extremely complacent. He had achieved his goal. It could be foreseen that from now on, no matter where Lin Sun went, he would be accompanied by countless troubles. Who do you think you are? How dare you bark in front of me? Boom! Lin Sun took a step forward, and a powerful momentum broke out from his body, making people's hearts palpitate. It was as if an ancient dragon had awakened. Are you going to kill me? Sha Yutong looked a little flustered. Although he was extremely jealous of Lin Sun, he really didn't have the courage to compete with Lin Sun. Crack! Lin Sun's figure flashed, and Sha Yutong was slapped in the face. Ah! He let out a scream. Although he was also a talent, he was no match for Lin Sun and couldn't avoid it at all. In an instant, he flew backward, and his cheekbone and jaw were directly broken. His mouth and nose were bleeding, and his teeth were peeled off. The crowd was shocked. Devil Lin was completely irritated. Did it mean that what Sha Yutong said just now was true? You are a shameless hypocrite. Do you think I don't know what you want to do by standing up at this moment? Should I say that you are insidious and despicable, or should I say that you are reckless? Lin Sun stepped forward and slapped Sha Yutong again, which directly sent him flying. His ears were buzzing, and he almost fainted. Lin Sun. Sha Yutong was furious. He struggled to get up with a livid face. Shut up! Lin Sun stepped on his chest and crushed his bones. He looked down at him and said coldly, I have tolerated you for a long time. Do you really think I dare not kill you? Sha Yutong's face was distorted, and his blue veins were bulging. His previous complacency disappeared. He never thought that he would be so humiliated by Lin Sun in front of so many talent. You! Sha Yutong's eyes were full of resentment, and he wanted to say something. Shut up! Lin Sun exerted force on the soles of his feet, and with a burst of cracking sound, all the bones in Sha Yutong's chest were broken and collapsed. Sha Yutong screamed in pain and almost fainted. I haven't settled the old scores with you yet, but you're still acting up. Do you think you can use this kind of trick to take my life? Lin Sun's face was cold, and his black eyes were bursting with terrifying cold light. Let me tell you, it's all in vain. I won't kill you. I'll let you witness how I rise in the ancient desolation realm, and how I fight for the top step by step. And you are destined to be a poor bug, living in my shadow for the rest of your life. Lin Sun's words were indifferent and calm. At this time, Sha Yutong was like a puddle of mud, unable to speak, and his face was full of fear and resentment. He was horrified to find that Lin Sun had become more terrible than he had imagined. He was so powerful that he couldn't even struggle or resist. The surrounding geniuses witnessed all of this with their own eyes, and their hearts were filled with shock. Sha Yutong must be a talent since he could enter the third test. But in front of Demon Lin, he was no better than a chicken or a dog, and was directly suppressed. Some peerless talents had different reactions when they saw this. They suspected that what Sha Yutong said was true. Otherwise, why would Demon Lin react so violently? For a moment, They looked at Lin Sun in a different and subtle way. Lin Sun didn't care about this. He couldn't help but be angry. He came from the same place as Shai Yutong, but he didn't expect that it would be Shai Yutong who first jumped out to harm him, and he did it more than once. Lin Sun, what do you mean? Junior Shai tried to persuade you out of kindness, but you didn't appreciate it. How dare you hurt him? Don't you think it's too much? Zhuo Guanglan, dressed in a blue robe, stood out. He was one of the 5 inherited disciples of Feather Sword sect and a peerless talent himself. Seeing Shai Yutong being suppressed and ravaged, he couldn't just stand by. After all, Shai Yutong was the successor of Feather Sword sect. You're not convinced? Lin Sun raised his eyes and glanced at him coldly. Since he arrived at the floating sea, he had been repeatedly provoked. Did they really think he was a pushover? Zhuo Guanglan frowned, then said calmly, "You should know the consequences of your actions." Lin Sun laughed, too lazy to care about the threat in Zhuo Guanglan's words. His figure suddenly straightened, and his cold eyes swept across everyone present. He said indifferently, "Whoever is not convinced can step out now. I, Lin Sun, will accompany you to the end." His words were so domineering that the expressions of all the powerhouses present changed slightly. Was Demon God Lin going to flip out? But his actions this time were really too arrogant. There were so many peerless talents present. How could he challenge them all alone? Haha, everyone look, this Demon God Lin is planning to make all of us his enemy. Qing Lianer chuckled, her words laced with needles. Humph, I think he's courting death. Lin Sun, you just offended Miss Ji and Child Yu, injured them, and provoked us. Do you really think you can do whatever you want? Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, Wu Duanya, and the others spoke up one after another. They had long had conflicts with Lin Sun, so they naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity to kick him when he was down. For a moment, many spearheads were pointed at Lin Sun, causing the powerhouses present to tremble. Chapter 893. Demon God Lin was in trouble. This was the common understanding of all the powerhouses. Being targeted by so many peerless figures, one could imagine how serious the consequences would be. However, they were mistaken about one thing. Lin Sun had never been afraid of anyone in the younger generation. Back when he first opened the Westing domain, he had dared to fall out with the Black Sea Tengu clan and engaged in a prolonged pursuit. He had even been hunted down by Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong, 2 old monsters of the King realm. Yet, he was still alive and well. This little conflict and conflict before him was not enough to make Lin Sun feel troubled. Cut the crap. If you're unconvinced, come out and fight. At that moment, Lin Sun's expression was calm. His black eyes were cold and his aura surged. He was like a disdainful young demon god as he scanned the crowd. Everyone's expression changed. Demon God Lin was still so unyielding at such a time. Was he throwing caution to the wind? Young Master Yu is right. This guy doesn't know what's good for him. A proud son of heaven sneered. He was a descendant of the Purple Gold Lynx clan and a top figure of the younger generation. Swoosh. Lin Sun didn't say any nonsense. His eyes suddenly burst out a pair of sharp blade-like divine light, and it suddenly swept out and tore the void apart. With a puff, the youth was struck just as he was about to dodge. His skin and flesh split open as blood gushed out. He was nearly beheaded. The void fluctuated, and before the young man could even scream, he was teleported out of the competition. Hiss. There was silence. Only the sound of gasps could be heard. The crowd was shocked. A pair of eyes had instantly suppressed a top figure? Wasn't Demon God Lin too strong? Although the youth just now could not be considered peerless, he was definitely a top figure among the proud sons of heaven. He had been famous for many years. Furthermore, he was from the Purple Gold Lynx clan. He had superb innate magical powers and unparalleled speed, but he could not even dodge in time and was directly suppressed. The eyes of all the peerless figures flickered, especially Sha Luchan and Qing Lian. They'd fought Lin Sun in the past, but only a few days had passed. Only now did they suddenly realize that Lin Sun's aura had become much stronger and more unfathomable. The scene was silent. Everyone could tell that demon god Lin was not joking. He really intended to fight and suppress all his enemies. Who else is unconvinced? Lin Sun's eyes became colder and colder. Just 3 words, with an indescribable aggressiveness, resounded through the world. The surroundings were deathly silent and extremely oppressive. Many experts looked at Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, Mu Jianting, Lei Qianjun, and Zhongli Wuji. Obviously, they subconsciously felt that only these peerless geniuses were capable of suppressing demon god Lin's might at this moment. As for the other experts present, they were nothing in front of demon god Lin. The miserable defeat of the purple gold lynx was the best proof of that. You are very scheming. Suddenly, Yu Lingkong spoke indifferently. You know that even if you're suppressed during the test of the Tao discussion, the outcome would only be elimination, and you don't have to worry about your life being in danger. So, you're fearless, right? Without waiting for Lin Sun to answer, he said word by word with a hint of killing intent in his voice, "Don't worry, I won't let you get what you want. When I arrive at the ancient path green lamp tree, I will kill you myself." His words were powerful and earth-shattering. The crowd trembled. They realized that this peerless figure from the pure land of longevity in the southern Xian world was completely determined to kill demon god Lin to wash away his shame. Of course, Yu Lingkong might have other intentions in doing so, but these were no longer important. What was important was that since he had said this, he would definitely do it. Lin Sun snorted coldly, "Don't speculate with your insidious mind. Don't you just want to fight to the death? When the time comes, as you wish." If he asked himself honestly, he had never had any dealings with Yu Lingkong, let alone any enmity. However, Yu Lingkong had become hostile towards him because of Ji Xingyao. That was going too far. Child Yu's action is absolutely gratifying. I've said that I would be the first to kill this person in this Tao discussion lantern tree. In this case, when we arrive at the ancient path green lamp tree, count me in. Zhongli Wuji also spoke. His figure was majestic, his expression was cold, and his momentum was oppressive. At this moment, the crowd became restless again. Lin Sun sneered. Back in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn, if Grandma Golden Crane hadn't stopped me, I would have already killed you. How could you have the chance to speak now? Haha, let's see who will be killed then. Zhongli Wuji laughed. Count me in too. At this time, Sha Luchan also spoke with a grim face, staring at Lin Sun with undisguised hatred. Count me in too, Qing Lianer also said coldly. Back in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn, she was defeated by Lin Sun due to carelessness, just like Sha Luchan. Therefore, she had always been resentful and wanted to take this opportunity to wash away her shame. Lin Sun, you insulted Yu Lingkong, the future leader of Feather Transformation Sword Sect. I, Zhuo Kuanglan, will take revenge for this. Zhuo Kuanglan said calmly. He was like a sword. Although he was not unsheathed, there was an unconcealable sharpness about him. For a time the situation changed. One after another, peerless figures stood out with strong attitudes, expressing their determination to kill demon god Lin. This caused a storm in the hearts of the nearby powerhouses. They were extremely shocked. It was foreseeable that when they reached the ancient path green lamp tree, a rare and intense battle was bound to unfold. And demon god Lin, who had become the target of public criticism, was destined to be in a precarious situation. Seeing all this, Bai Lingshi's expression finally changed at this moment. She was extremely worried. She was undoubtedly the one who knew Lin Sun the best among all of them. It was also because she understood Lin Sun's nature that she was certain that Lin Sun would not retreat in fear. Ever since he cultivated in Xiao Empire, he had never been scared off by any threat. However, Bai Lingshi knew very well that this time was completely different from the past. Yulinkong alone possessed unimaginably terrifying combat strength. Among his peers, he was like a king. He had never been defeated even once since he started cultivating. He was too strong. He was so strong that Bai Lingshi could not believe that Lin Sun could compete with him. It was not that Bai Lingshi was pessimistic, but she knew Lin Sun very well. Similarly, she also knew Yulinkong very well. After weighing the pros and cons, she could not have too much confidence in Lin Sun. I only hope that you don't act on impulse. A moment of forbearance is not necessarily a bad thing. Bai Lingshi murmured in her heart. She did not dare to persuade Lin Sun at this moment for fear of hurting his pride. She could only hope that Lin Sun could judge the situation and make the best choice for himself. At this moment, Lin Sun's expression remained unchanged. His black eyes were cold as he looked at the enemies that popped up one after another. He was not surprised. Whether it was Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer, Zhongli Wuji, or Zhua Kuanglan, they were all within his expectations. He knew that they would not let the matter rest. The only thing that made him frown was Yulinkong's decision. It was only a small matter, but a peerless talent like him had threatened to kill him. This reaction was obviously too big, and it seemed to be a little impatient. This made Lin Sun realize that Yulinkong must have another purpose for doing so. However, Lin Sun was not afraid of anything. On the contrary, when he saw this scene, he breathed a sigh of relief. The enemy was not terrible, but the enemy hiding in the dark was terrible. Lin Sun did not believe that other talents would not be tempted after hearing Shai Yutong's bewitching words just now. It was even to the extent that he dared to determine that many experts in the surroundings had probably already firmly believed that he possessed fortune and a saint artifact. Perhaps they hadn't revealed it at this moment, but there was no guarantee that some people had already aroused other thoughts in their hearts. This was the enemy in the dark. Similarly, this also made Lin Sun vigilant. It was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against an arrow in the dark. This was an irrefutable truth since ancient times. At this moment, Ji Xingyao's cold and clear voice suddenly came to his ears. It seems that there are many people who want to deal with you. I won't get involved this time. But don't be too happy too early. If you can survive this time, I will definitely seek revenge on you. There was a hint of schadenfreude in her voice, but also a hint of determination. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and was angry in his heart. Everything that happened today was not caused by this proud girl, but it broke out from her. But now she was making sarcastic remarks as if she was waiting to see him make a fool of himself, which was too irritating. He looked up and saw Ji Xingyao with a graceful figure and a temperament as cold as snow. She was looking at him with a pair of star-like clear eyes, and there was an inexplicable curve at the corners of her red and plump lips. Don't force me. If you push me too far, I won't keep your secret for you. Lin Sun also warned her by voice transmission. You! Ji Xingyao's clear eyes suddenly widened. Lin Sun sneered, What? Let me tell you, if you want revenge, come quickly. If I don't break your ass, I will change my surname to yours. A wisp of embarrassment, rage, and killing intent that couldn't be concealed suddenly appeared on Ji Xingyao's beautiful face. This fellow actually dared to use this to threaten her. He was simply shameless and despicable to the point that he deserved to be hacked into pieces. You'd better not die this time. She gnashed her teeth with hatred, and her red lips were pursed into an arc that was like the edge of a blade. If it wasn't for the fact that the timing wasn't right, she even wanted to charge forward and kill him right now. Thank you for your kind words. Lin Sun smiled in response. Swish, swish. Meanwhile, numerous lotus flowers the size of wooden basins suddenly condensed on the distant floating sea. They were golden and glowed, and they were beautiful and dazzling as they floated on the surface of the sea. The third test was about to begin. Let's go. A divine light flashed in the eyes of many practitioners, and they soared into the sky and stepped on the golden lotuses as they rode the wind and broke through the waves. Lin soon noticed that every golden lotus could accommodate at most 2 people to stand on, and many practitioners chose to move in pairs. Lin Sun, do you want to go with me? Yu Jiaming approached from afar. Lin Sun was slightly surprised. If you go with me now, you'll encounter a lot of risks, and you might even be targeted by other experts. Are you sure? Do you think I'm such a timid person? Yu Jiaming laughed lightheartedly. Chapter 894. Clatter. When the group of experts stepped onto a golden lotus and began to ride the wind and waves, the originally calm floating and sinking sea suddenly became turbulent and waves surged. On one of the golden lotuses, Lin Sun and Yu Jiaming ran their strength to drive the lotus under their feet forward. Each drop of seawater weighs thousands of kilograms, which causes great resistance. We need to run our cultivation all the time to move forward. If we are hit by the waves, it will become dangerous. We can't fly in the air. Once we are involved in the sea, we will be eliminated. No, there is something wrong with the seawater. Suddenly, Lin Sun, who was familiarizing himself with the power of this test, felt a strange and cold invisible force spreading, which actually had an impact on his mind. Being caught off guard, Lin Sun trembled all over. He felt a burst of irritation in his heart, and his qi was affected. Whoosh! Lin Sun took a deep breath and calmed his mind. As he expected, the third test was aimed at the mental strength of practitioners. The state of mind was the most mysterious and mysterious. In ancient times, many sages and mighty figures believed that cultivation was the process of subduing one's mind. If one's mind was as steady as a rock, he would remain motionless no matter what happened. If one's mind was restless, he would be confused and worried about gains and losses. The road to cultivation was difficult and full of dangers. If one's mind was unsteady and looked ahead, he was doomed to fail. It was also the easiest to provoke the invasion of external demons and encounter disasters. The state of mind was related to the 7 emotions and 6 desires, so it was the most vulnerable to be affected. If one's state of mind was firm, even if his aptitude was mediocre, he would have the hope to set foot on the road to cultivation. But if one's state of mind was unstable, even if he had the natural talent and peerless inheritance, his achievements were bound to be limited, and it was impossible to go too far on the road to cultivation. In short, the state of mind was mysterious and the most difficult to control. Take Shi Yutong for example. He used to be proud and arrogant, and was praised as the outstanding young man of the empire. But since he arrived in the ancient desolation realm and met Lin Sun, his state of mind had changed. He couldn't accept the fact that Lin Sun was stronger than him, and his heart was shrouded with the shadow of jealousy and hatred. He himself realized that this was his inner demon, a knot in his heart. If he didn't get rid of it, it would definitely affect his path of cultivation. Unfortunately, Shi Yutong chose the wrong method. He didn't find the problem in himself, but thought that as long as he eradicated Lin Sun, he could get rid of the devil in his heart, which led to a tragedy and was completely suppressed by Lin Sun. Be careful. No, don't. Not long after, a wave of panicked shouts rose and fell from the floating sea. Many experts looked as if they were possessed. Some were screaming in fear, some were trembling in fear, and some seemed to have gone mad, shouting and yelling. After that, before they could regain their senses, their entire bodies were slapped flying by the surging waves, and they fell from the golden lotuses and sank into the sea before vanishing. Obviously, they were eliminated. This made Lin Sun's heart tremble. He realized that although there was no fatal danger in the floating and sinking sea, more terrible disasters were lurking. This was a test that specifically targeted one's state of mind. If one was able to pass it, then one would be able to smoothly arrive at the other side. If one was unable to pass it, then one would fall into the drifting sea and be eliminated. Fuchen Sea. Fuchen. Lin Sun was lost in thought. Boom. Suddenly, a wave surged in front of him, rolling up thousands of piles of snow with a thunderous sound. In an instant, Lin Sun's mind was violently impacted as if he was caught in a nightmare. Wenjing, take the child and go. Vaguely, Lin Sun heard an anxious voice with trembling and pleading. No, it's too late. A sigh full of pain rang out. Then, Lin Sun opened his eyes with difficulty and saw a beautiful but anxious face of a woman. He was wrapped in swaddling clothes and held tightly in the arms of the woman. This Lin Sun was stunned. Had he become a baby? Why is this happening? The man's sorrowful roar rang out. Lin Sun turned his head and saw a handsome and awe-inspiring man beside him. His angular face was full of pain and confusion. In the distance, the fire was blazing and burning in the night, extremely dazzling. There were also mournful screams, helpless cries of despair, angry and unwilling roars, all of them interweaved together and rang out in the night. Could it be that this pair of man and woman were his parents, Lin Wenjing and Luo Qingxuan? Lin Sun was shocked. Suddenly, a thin middle-aged man rushed to him from a distance. He was scarred all over and his face was stained with blood. He shouted in panic, "Young lord, it's bad. The patriarch, It was Grandad Zhong." Lin Sun was shocked again. Wasn't the middle-aged man bathed in blood Xin Jingluan, the white horse? But later he changed his name to Lin Zhong and worked for Lin family. However, Lin Zhong was younger than Lin Sun remembered. What's wrong? The man asked in a low voice. They were all killed. The thin middle-aged man let out a sad hiss, and his eyes were red with hatred. All of a sudden, the man was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He looked terrible. Is that guy going to destroy my Lin family by himself? He's going too far. Wenjing, he came for our child. At this time, the woman had become very calm, as if she had been numb. I've expected this day, but I didn't expect it would come so soon. Because of this child, our Lin family is implicated. Then she looked down at the baby in her arms, and her pretty face was full of complex emotions. Lin Sun's heart trembled. He wanted to say something, but he could only make a babbling sound, which made him feel an unprecedented sense of powerlessness. He was anxious and angry. At this time, he had concluded that these were his parents. What a joke! Our child is just 1 month old. How could all this happen because of him? Qingxuan, what are you trying to say? Lin Wenjing said angrily. Don't you understand? Since he was born, he is different from other children. He has a special spiritual vein. Luo Qingxuan sighed. But before she finished her words, Lin Wenjing interrupted her. I know this, but it's just because of a natural spiritual vein that caused this disaster? You don't understand. Luo Qingxuan took a deep breath. You know, I wandered to this world to avoid being hunted. Later on, I met you. I thought that nothing would happen to me in this broken small world for the rest of my life. But I didn't expect that trouble would come. Do you know why? Speaking of this, there was a touch of bitterness and pain on Luo Qingxuan's lips, because I never belonged to this world. Lin Wenjing frowned. I know you are from the ancient desolation realm. No. Luo Qingxuan shook her head. I don't belong to the ancient desolation realm either. I come from the other side of the starry sky. The other side of the starry sky? Lin Sun was a little confused. Not from the mortal world, not from the ancient desolation realm, but from another unimaginable place? Where was the other side of the starry sky? Boom. At this point, their conversation was interrupted by a terrifying explosion. The scene in front of Lin soon changed, and he saw Lin Wenjing roaring in a sea of fire. Run! Run for your lives! Take our child and go! He looked so anxious and angry, as if he had gone mad. I won't go. Even if I escape this time, it will come again in the future. It's better to die with you. In the future, I won't be so painful. Luo Qingxuan looked calm. She looked down at the baby in her arms, and her face was full of guilt and sadness. She murmured, My child, you shouldn't have come to this world. I'm sorry. 2 lines of tears flowed down and fell on Lin Sun's face. Suddenly, there was a kind of unspeakable pain in his heart, and he was almost suffocating. Clang! At this time, a clear sword sound resounded through the world, shaking the world. Lin Sun looked over subconsciously and saw a man with snow-white clothes, black hair dancing in the wind, and an extremely indifferent look, holding an ancient black sword in his hand. That pitch-black sword body was still dripping with dark red blood. Behind him, there was a sea of fire and a scene of destruction. Then, a sky-reaching sword light appeared, tearing the sky apart. It was extremely bright and terrifying. After that, he couldn't see anything anymore. But Lin Sun knew that it was this sword that killed his parents. At this moment, Lin Sun's mind was blank. Anger, powerlessness, despair, and grief flooded his mind like a tide. However, his mind was unprecedentedly calm, and he was not affected at all. On the contrary, he was carefully perceiving and experiencing the unspeakable impact of turbulent emotions. Lin Sun knew that this was the taste of hatred. In the past, he only knew who his parents were and who his enemies were, but he had never touched them, felt them, or experienced them personally. Yun Qi Bai. Lin Sun, wake up! Yu Jiaming called. Lin Sun woke up completely. His vision was restored, and the turbulent floating sea was surging, setting off snow-white waves. Are you all right? Yu Jiaming asked worriedly. I'm fine. Lin Sun shook his head. At the corner of his eye, a drop of tear instantly evaporated, but no one noticed it. Be careful. The power of the floating sea is extremely dangerous, and it will have a terrible impact on your state of mind. If you are careless, you will be eliminated. Speaking of this, Yu Jiaming's expression suddenly became a little weird. Just now, I felt like I had a dream. I went back to the time when I was a child practicing in the sect. Because I was too naughty, I was imprisoned in the forbidden area of the back mountain by my master. For 3 months, I was alone in meditation. That feeling was really unbearable. At that time, I hated my master so much that I swore I would take revenge. Speaking of this, Yu Jiaming suddenly stopped and said with some embarrassment, I'm sorry. I was still a child at that time. I didn't know anything, so I couldn't take my oath seriously. I see. Lin Sun smiled and looked at the vast floating sea. He knew that what he had just experienced was the same as Yu Jiaming's. His state of mind was affected by the power of the floating sea, and his dusty memory was opened and reappeared. Chapter 895. The past rose and fell, and the waves surged. Lin Sun didn't expect that one day he would meet his parents in a special way on the floating sea. This was the first time he had met his parents since he grew up. Unfortunately, it was a memory that had been sealed in his heart. He would never see them again in this life. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. In his mind, the proud figure with snow-white clothes and soaring sword intent appeared again. The ancient sword in his hand was dark, with red blood dripping from it. Behind him was the scene of fire and destruction. Yun Qi Bai. Indescribable hatred surged in Lin Sun's heart. He had never been so unforgettable. In the past, he only regarded revenge as a responsibility that the lineal descendants of Lin family had to bear. But now, revenge had become an instinct branded in Lin Sun's bones. Clatter on the floating sea, the waves were surging. A group of strong people raced across the sea on Lotus Boat. However, whether it was Yu Lingkong, Ji Xingyao, or other powerful cultivators, none of them were fast. The third test was to temper the state of mind. There was no time limit or reward. As long as they could reach the shore smoothly, they would pass the test. However, comparatively speaking, this test was undoubtedly the most dangerous. A formless energy spread out from the floating sea, assaulting the minds of every single expert, causing them to suffer a formless impact and blow. This test was neither a battle nor a contest of strength, but the strength of the state of mind. It was the most mysterious and terrible test. From time to time, there were all kinds of sounds in the wind and waves, including screams of horror, roars of anger, and crazy laughter. Those who could stick to their Taoist heart were all sober, while those whose Taoist heart was loose were directly swept away by the waves and eliminated. Both Lin Sun and Yu Jianming had just experienced a nightmarish experience. Realizing the horror of the floating sea, they dared not neglect the rest of the way. They held their breath and concentrated on fighting. At this time, the outside world was in an uproar. In the second test, Fairy Ji is the second, and Yu Linkong is the third. Who on earth is the first? When the eliminated strong people returned, they also brought back the latest news of what happened in the Tao discussion, which attracted the attention of all people. Back then, we suspected that first place was very likely to be taken by Fiend Celestial Lin. Impossible. Who does Demon God Lin think he is? How could he suppress Fairy Ji? But apart from Fiend God Lin, who else can do it? The rankings of Jade Void Temple's Mu Jianting, Lei Qianjun of the barbarian race of the Great Wilderness, and Li Qinghuan of the Vast Sea Dao sect have all been exposed. They are not number one. Only Fiend God Lin's ranking has yet to be revealed. Everyone was talking about it. They didn't expect that the first place of the second test was still a mystery even though the third test had already begun. What? Demonic God Lin challenged all of them alone? Soon, this shocking news caused an uproar. The things that Lin Sun beat Shai Yutong violently, defeated the purple gold lynx in anger, and had conflicts with a group of peerless talents were also exposed one by one. At this moment, even those great figures couldn't sit still any longer and were visibly moved. He's courting death. He's definitely courting death. He, demonic God Lin, has never encountered a setback since his rise. Does he think he can be arrogant and look down on all the heroes of the world? Some people were disdainful and attacked. This is a real man, unyielding and heroic. How many people in the younger generation of the entire West Hung world can have such a demeanor? There were also many people who exclaimed in admiration of Lin Sun's courage and boldness. No matter what, when he arrives in front of the green lamp of the ancient way, Demon God Lin is destined to encounter an unexpected blow and a fatal calamity. This was what everyone was thinking. After all, it was not only Yu Linkong, a dazzling figure who had long been famous in the world, who stood up against Lin Sun this time. There were also Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer, and Zhuo Quanglan, who were also peerless talent. Although Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer had been defeated by Lin Sun, no one would think that they didn't have any trump cards in their hands. This Fiend God Lin is in huge trouble. Presently, Shai Yutong has already confirmed that he once obtained a great fortune from one of the 4 great ancient ruins of Tao, the ruins of End. Moreover, he possesses a saint artifact. I can foresee that there are probably many experts in the dark that are targeting him. Exactly. If an ancient orthodoxy stood behind demonic God Lin, then it would definitely make many people feel fearful, and they wouldn't dare do anything that went overboard. But everyone knows that he's all alone, and he's even from the lower dimensions. He has no one to rely on, and this has undoubtedly caused his situation to become even worse. There was endless discussion in the field. Some great figures had different thoughts. The ultimate, great fortune, holy treasure. Just these words were enough to make the old monsters of the King realm covet. It could be foreseen that even if Demon God Lin could walk out of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival alive, there would be a lot of trouble coming to him in the future. This was the saying that a man's wealth arouses his own ruin. A young man from the mortal world, who had no roots and no background, was sitting on such a great fortune. This was just like a moving treasure house, enough to attract many covetous eyes. 2 hours later, Lin Sun felt a little tired. Traveling in the floating sea, he not only had to resist the mental impact, but also had to run his cultivation to drive the lotus boat forward. Up to now, Lin Sun had consumed a lot of his cultivation. He didn't dare to consume too much energy. After all, there were a lot of strong people scattered around the floating sea. In case of a sneak attack, he must have the strength to fight back. Let me do it. Yu Jianming next to him took up the heavy burden and began to drive the lotus boat forward. Lin Sun immediately sat cross-legged and began to meditate. The floating sea was a test of tempering one's state of mind. Along the way, Lin Sun's state of mind was almost constantly impacted. There were illusions from the depths of his memories, the invasion of heavenly devil phantoms, and even many mysterious tribulations, which turned into wind, thunder, earth, and fire to torture his state of mind. Although it was extremely dangerous, Lin Sun's Taoist heart was tempered and baptized after this tempering. Like a piece of unpolished jade that had been tempered thousands of times, it began to show its glittering side. This sort of precious comprehension and transformation that came from one's mental state could be considered to be quite a great fortune. At this time, Lin Sun was meditating to restore his physical strength, and at the same time, he was consolidating his state of mind and experiencing the subtle changes in his mind. After a long time, Lin Sun opened his eyes, which were filled with terrifying divine light. His physical strength had been completely restored, and his state of mind had become more tenacious and powerful than before. Take this opportunity to break through the realm. Lin Sun made a decision. Clatter, he reached out his hand and took out a pile of crystal-clear stones as bright as fire diamonds. Some of them were as big as walnuts, and some were as big as fingernails, all of which were filled with pure divine aura. These were divine source crystals, which Lin Sun obtained from hunting fierce beasts in the first test, the secret realm of 5 elements reversal. There were more than 50 of them. This item was extremely miraculous, and its greatest effect was to increase the cultivation of a cultivator. Moreover, it wouldn't affect or shake the foundation of a cultivator. Such a treasure was utterly impossible to find in the outside world, and it was a rare treasure that could only be chanced upon by luck. Start refining. Without hesitation, Lin Sun ran the Nature Insight and Spirit Devour scripture and began to meditate. The spirit of his spirit sat in the sea of his consciousness, controlling Lin Sun's state of mind and the power of his divine soul. While being vigilant of the surroundings, he resisted the power that was still constantly attacking his Taoist heart. Fortunately, Lin Sun's spirit had condensed a spiritual body and could multitask. Otherwise, cultivating on this dangerous and unpredictable floating sea was absolutely no different from courting death. As time went by, Lin Sun could clearly feel that his cultivation was constantly improving. Every improvement was extremely significant, like a river surging in the rain. This was the power of divine source crystals. In the past, if his strength advanced by leaps and bounds, Lin Sun would worry whether it would cause instability in his foundation and affect his future cultivation. But now, he didn't have to worry at all. The power of divine source crystals was pure and strong, and it came from the origin of Tao. In the process of refining, not only would it not affect his Taoist foundation, but it would also produce a strange effect, nourishing and tempering the Taoist foundation. Almost 10 minutes later, Lin Sun keenly noticed that he was about to break through the realm. At this time, he still had more than 20 divine source crystals in his hand, which was enough. Boom! All the qi in Lin Sun's body was mobilized, and his essence, qi, and spirit were roaring. Like a boiling volcano that was about to erupt, he began to attack the barrier of cultivation with all his strength. His whole body was bathed in the rolling clouds, dazzling and blazing. This movement was so big that Yu Jianming, who was beside him, was immediately alarmed. His pupils shrank and he almost cried out. Who would have thought that Lin Sun was breaking through the realm in such a dangerous place? This was too bold. God, am I seeing it right? Is Demon Lin breaking through the realm? Oh my God, it's true! I see. The battle with Yu Linkong and others must have made Demon Lin feel great pressure, so he has to seize the time to improve his cultivation in order to protect himself. On the distant sea, many strong people looked over. They were also alarmed, and their eyes flickered as they speculated. He is courting death. If someone sneak attacks him at this time, it will not only be as simple as being eliminated, but also may cause him to go berserk and be completely disabled. Some people whispered. It was unknown whether it was intentional or unintentional, but these words seemed to be reminding other strong people that if they wanted to take action, this was undoubtedly the best time to attack Demon Lin. Yu Jiaming's face darkened and he felt bad in his heart. Almost in an instant, he was keenly aware that there were many malicious eyes looking at Lin Sun from all directions. Trouble. Yu Jiaming frowned. Immediately, he gritted his teeth and decided that even if he was eliminated, he would do his best to protect Lin Sun from the danger of going berserk. However, before Yu Jiaming could prepare, Lin Sun's voice sounded in his ears. "Brother Yu, don't move. I'd like to see who will attack me at this time." Chapter 896. Yu Jiaming was shocked, and his expression became strange. Did Lin Sun choose to break the realm at this time on purpose? However, it was too risky to test the enemy in the dark by breaking the realm. Immediately, Yu Jiaming smiled bitterly. Lin Sun was famous for his courage. What he did was really in line with his character. "I just don't know how many guys will jump out in the dark." Yu Jiaming glanced around thoughtfully. Boom! At this time, Lin Sun's body was like a stove, and his cultivation was running like a wild horse. He reached an unprecedented peak state and hit the barrier again and again. In the reincarnation developing realm, his cultivation and foundation were strong enough to be fearless of all opponent. He could be called the supreme king of this realm. But everything had its advantages and disadvantages. His foundation was too strong, which made it extremely difficult and slow for him to break through. Just like at this time, even with the help of the Divine Essence Crystal, Lin Sun couldn't break the realm at the first time. However, Lin Sun was not worried. This time, he was full of confidence. Even if someone would take this opportunity to interfere and attack him, he would not be afraid. The floating and sinking sea was very dangerous, but at the same time, it also limited the strength of many strong people, so that they could not fly in the air or enter the sea, and could only stand on the lotus boat. Moreover, they also had to resist and resolve the impact from the mind at all times. If they wanted to interrupt Lin Sun breaking the realm, they would undoubtedly encounter many obstacles. Of course, the most effective way was to use the power of the soul to attack and interfere. As soon as Lin Sun thought of this, the spirit of the spirit in the sea of his consciousness suddenly noticed that a biting cold light swept quietly and pierced into his sea of consciousness. Someone really wanted to attack his soul, however. Lin Sun didn't feel happy at this time. This attack was extremely hidden and fierce, so he had to treat it with caution. Condense. In the sea of his consciousness, the spirit of the spirit, who had been alert for a long time, stood up. The 2-inch-tall figure stood straight, stretched out his hand, and grasped the biting cold light firmly with meditating magic. This was a silver needle as thin as a cow's hair, emitting a misty chill, and the tip of the needle was surrounded by a wisp of frightening lightning. Silver soul petrifying needle. This was an extremely overbearing and vicious soul secret treasure. It was capable of silently piercing into the sea of consciousness of one's opponent, and the glow of lightning that coiled around it was capable of instantly blasting one's soul core into pieces. However, even though this treasure was terrifying, it was extremely difficult to refine. Even in the ancient orthodoxies, there were very few that could refine such a treasure. In this way, it could be inferred that the origin of the sneak attacker must be extraordinary, and he was cruel and merciless. He would seize the opportunity to kill Lin Sun once and for all. It was a pity that the opponent didn't expect that Lin Sun could cultivate the spirit of spirit in the reincarnation development realm and master the meditating magic. No matter how strong the silver soul needle was, it would be difficult to hurt Lin Sun. Whoosh. Almost at the same time, Lin Sun's spiritual awareness spread out and followed the direction of the silver soul needle. In an instant, 2 figures standing on a golden lotus came into Lin Sun's mind. One of them was the profound young sex Wu Duanya, who was currently looking at him with a cold expression. The other was Li Qinghuan, who had a gentle and calm expression. Was it him? Lin Sun still remembered that Wu Duanya had been teased by him on the Fire Lotus Ice Mountain, and he hated Lin Sun to the core. If the soul-stirring silver soul needle was his handiwork, it would make sense. But soon, Lin Sun noticed something unusual. Wu Duanya's expression stagnated, and he seemed to be a little surprised. He couldn't help turning his head to Li Qinghuan and said, "Brother Li, why doesn't that thing work?" "Shut up." Li Qinghuan's face darkened at this moment, and the gentleness on his face disappeared. Instead, there was a touch of coercive power on his face. "Communicate by voice transmission. Don't let that guy hear it." Wu Duanya was stunned, and then he said disapprovingly, "That guy is breaking through to the next realm. How can he hear our conversation? Brother Li, you are too careful." Li Qinghuan frowned and said with cold eyes, "Caution is the parent of safety." The next moment, Lin Sun could no longer hear their conversation. Obviously, the two began to communicate by voice transmission. "It's him?" Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. Li Qinghuan. He had a deep impression of this person. When he was on the Fire Lotus Ice Mountain, he had seen Li Qinghuan fight. Li Qinghuan seemed to be a person who didn't show his strength, but in fact, his strength was even stronger than Sha Luchan. Moreover, this person was extremely low-key and unpredictable. This kind of opponent was undoubtedly the most terrifying. This sneak attack on me, even if it wasn't his instruction, it must have something to do with him. But why on earth did he do this? Lin Sun frowned. Whoosh. The next moment, Lin Sun summoned a spirit-eating bug, which turned into an invisible light and quietly swept towards Li Qinghuan in the distance. Wu Duanya was not to be feared, but Li Qinghuan was the one Lin Sun really paid attention to. Something's wrong. The Silver Soul Needle is out of control. I'm afraid that guy still has some kind of soul treasure in his hands, or maybe he has mastered some secret method of the soul. Li Qinghuan frowned. No way, that guy has too many secrets. He has the fortune from the ultimate and the holy treasures. Now, he even has the secret soul treasure? Wu Duanya was stunned and couldn't believe it. The two communicated by voice transmission, so they didn't have to worry about being heard. No one knows whether this is true or not, but it's certain that this demon god Lin is an extremely difficult opponent. It's not easy to kill him. Speaking of this, Li Qinghuan suddenly stiffened and let out a muffled groan. A touch of pain suddenly appeared on his face. In his sea of consciousness, a grain-sized bug was crazily attacking and gnawing at his spirit. Clatter, suddenly, his soul glowed, and then a layer of dazzling and resplendent armor appeared and firmly protected his soul within it. Whoosh! However, when he used the secret method of the soul to restrain the bug, the latter suddenly turned into a flash of light and escaped. Li Qinghuan's heart sank, and he realized why this happened. Brother Li, are you okay?" Beside him, Wu Duanya was anxious. "I'm fine." Li Qinghuan's face was gloomy. After a while, he took a deep breath and restored his gentle and humble appearance. He looked at Lin Sun in the distance. "Taoism Peer Lin Sun, I offended you just now. What I did was indeed taking advantage of your precarious situation. However, I was also standing up for my friend. Please forgive me." He transmitted his voice with an apologetic tone. It was an incomparably vicious sneak attack, but he played it down when he spoke of it. "What's done is done. Why apologize?" Lin Sun's voice was cold. "An eye for an eye. I did something to you just now and you also fought back. Why don't we write off the misunderstanding between us? To be honest, if it weren't for my friend's request, I would never want to be your enemy." Li Qinghuan's voice was sincere. "Do you think it's possible?" Lin Sun's voice was cold, but he was actually more vigilant of this person. This guy had done such a despicable thing, but he could still put on such a humble posture to apologize. This was not what ordinary people could do. Alas, I know you misunderstood me. However, I will make up for it in the future. I just hope you don't regard me as a despicable villain." Li Qinghuan sighed, seeming to be dispirited, and said no more. Lin Sun didn't say anything more. He wouldn't be dismissed by a few words of apology. Li Qinghuan's move was too vicious. If Lin Sun hadn't been vigilant, once he was hit, it would not be as simple as being eliminated. His soul might be destroyed and he would be disabled. Lin Sun would not let go of such a hatred. However, what he didn't expect was that Li Qinghuan's spirit contained a secret treasure of the soul, which could defend the spirit and resist the attack of the spirit-eating insects. Unfortunately, the spirit-eating insects are only larvae. If they can evolve to the next stage, they may be able to tear up this defense. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. At this time, he could only endure it for the time being. He was still in the process of breaking through, and he really couldn't spare any attention to deal with Li Qinghuan. "Brother Wu, in order to stand up for you this time, I have offended Demon God Lin." Li Qinghuan sighed softly. "What? He actually sensed that it was us?" Wu Duanya was shocked and found it hard to believe. "Yeah, I also didn't expect that this demon god Lin would be so powerful, and even raise a strange insect that is ranked in the top 10 of the ancient times." Li Qinghuan's eyes had a strange look. "What insect? It can actually be ranked in the top 10 of the ancient times?" Wu Duanya was even more shocked. Li Qinghuan shook his head. "Let's not talk about this. You just have to remember, in the following journey, you must be vigilant of Lin Sun. It's best not to give him any chance to come into contact with you. Stay as far away from him as possible. I suspect that he will not only attack me, but also you." Wu Duanya was unconvinced. "What are you afraid of? He, Demon God Lin, has already made enemies of so many peerless figures. What do we have to fear?" Li Qinghuan's eyes surged with a sharp look that seemed to be able to see through everything. "Others are others, you are you. If Demon God Lin really goes crazy, even if he is killed in the end, there will be a few more scapegoats." After a pause, he continued, "I have already decided that in the following journey, I will not give Lin Sun any chance to attack me. Wherever he goes, I will definitely not take a step closer." "Brother Li, aren't you being too cautious?" Wu Duanya was very doubtful. In his impression, Li Qinghuan was a peerless figure with peerless looks and exceptional battle prowess. He was definitely not weaker than any peerless figure. But now, Li Qinghuan seemed to be extremely afraid of Demon God Lin. This was too abnormal. "You don't understand. This Lin Sun is not simple. Whoever underestimates him will have to pay a heavy price that they cannot bear." Li Qinghuan said calmly, "For the time being, I don't dare to provoke such a person." Wu Duanya's expression changed. Only then did he realize the seriousness of the problem. He could not help but say, "Could it be that you think that even if you Linkong and the others make a move, they will not be able to take down Demon God Lin?" Li Qinghuan was silent for a long time before he said, "That will depend on whether Lin Sun really has a saint treasure." Chapter 897. Holy Treasure? Wu Duanya's pupils shrank. "Don't forget that you Linkong of the southern mysterious world came in the immortal hall. It's a famous holy treasure." Li Qinghuan said leisurely, "Under such circumstances, what ability do you think Demon God Lin has to fight against you Linkong?" Wu Duanya understood and was shocked. "I see. Not only you Linkong, but Ji Xingyao, Mu Jianting, and Lei Qianjun also have powerful trump cards." When Li Qinghuan said this, a rare disdain appeared on his face. This is the gap between peerless figures and ordinary cultivators. They are the descendants of ancient orthodoxies and have extraordinary talent. They also have secret treasures granted by their sex to protect themselves. How can other strong cultivators compare with them? Now that I speak of it, I rather admire Devil God Lin. He isn't a disciple of an ancient sect, nor does he possess a background that he can rely on, yet he's able to slaughter out such a great reputation by himself and shake the younger generation of the West Ocean world. Just this alone is sufficient to make most experts feel ashamed. Wu Duanya was stunned. He felt that Li Qinghuan's words were very strange. Brother Li, you are also a peerless figure from the Tsangmei Taoist sect, Wu Duanya could not help but say. Li Qinghuan sighed and said, So, I understand the difference between demon god Lin and other peerless figures. A scream suddenly sounded in the distance, alarming the strong cultivators in the nearby area. A man from the Cyan Phoenix clan was holding his head with his hands and his face was distorted as if he was in great pain. He roared, Silver Soul Needle! Demon God Lin, you are so ruthless! Splash! The next moment, the man was engulfed by the waves and eliminated. The atmosphere was silent for a moment. Many people looked at Lin Sun with flickering eyes. No one expected that Demon God Lin would have the power to counterattack at the critical moment of breaking through. Moreover, his counterattack was so overbearing and ruthless. Silver Soul Needle. This was an incomparably vicious artifact. For a moment, some strong cultivators who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to attack Lin Sun gave up the idea. Witnessing this scene, Li Qinghuan and Wu Duanya looked a little strange. Indeed, the Silver Soul Needle was taken away by Demon God Lin. Boom! The aura around Lin Sun's body was getting stronger and stronger, and his skin was shining as if it was made of clear immortal gold, emitting a bright luster. His blood energy rumbled like muffled thunder. He was like a volcano that had been suppressed for a long time and was about to erupt. Everyone could tell that Demon God Lin's breakthrough had reached the most critical moment. This made many powerhouses feel complicated. Originally, Lin Sun's cultivation was strong enough to compete with peerless figures. If his cultivation broke through again, there was no doubt that his battle prowess would become even more terrifying. If this goes on, who will be able to suppress him in the future? Some powerhouses were jealous, and their voices carried a hint of unwillingness. Alas, comparisons are odious. In the past, I thought I could already be proud amongst the younger generation, but since I participated in the Tao Lantern discussion this time and witnessed the elegant demeanor of numerous peerless figures, it caused me to suffer successive blows, and I've completely realized that there's always someone stronger out there. Some experts sighed with emotion. Humph, you want to take this opportunity to advance? Dream on. Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded. Shaoyochan's figure appeared on a lotus boat in the distance, and he exuded an intimidating might. Blue Sea Tide. His whole body surged with surging bloodlight, and he reached out his hand. With a rumble, 1,000-meter-high wave suddenly set off in the floating sea, turning into a terrifying tidal whirlpool, crushing the void and rushing towards Lin Sun. Hiss! The crowd gasped. This was the floating sea, and every drop of seawater weighed tens of thousands of pounds. Even if an ordinary powerhouse attacked with all his strength, he could only set off a small wave. But now there was a turbulent tidal whirlpool crushing the void, and it was triggered by Sha Luchan. This scene was too terrifying. Retreat! Some powerhouses along the way turned pale, and they drove the lotus boats under their feet away, lest they be affected. This tidal whirlpool was too terrifying. Not to mention being hit, even being affected was not something they could bear. Rumble! The waves were monstrous, turning into a crushing whirlpool. This made everyone realize that Sha Luchan wanted to destroy Demon God Lin's advancement in one fell swoop, causing him to suffer chi deviation and be completely crippled. Damn it! Yu Jiaming was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He operated his cultivation to the limit and was ready to fight with all his strength. Boom! The tidal whirlpool struck, setting off a terrifying crushing force. It was going to involve both Lin Sun and Yu Jiaming. Cut! Yu Jiaming roared. He took out his spiritual sword and slashed out a dazzling light to fight against it. But in just a moment, his whole body was shaken as if he had been electrocuted, and he was almost thrown out by the tidal whirlpool. This power was too horrible for him to resist. But even then, Yu Jianming still gritted his teeth and practically put his life on the line as he utilized all his trump card. In any case, he couldn't just watch Lin Sun fail in his advancement. What a joke! My sea shark clan is an expert at playing with water. I use the secret of moving 1,000 caddies with little effort to stir up a storm. How can someone like you resist it? Get out of my way! Sha Luchan roared. He stretched out his hand and set off another tidal whirlpool out of thin air, crushing towards Lin Sun. The crowd was shocked. Sha Luchan was too powerful. How dangerous the floating sea was, but he still had the power to stir up waves. He really looked very fierce. Rumble! Another tidal whirlpool roared, crushing the sea and sweeping away. Demon God Lin was going to suffer. Everyone could see that it was already very difficult for Yu Jianming to block one tidal whirlpool. Under the attack of the second tidal whirlpool, he and Lin Sun were doomed to suffer. Lin Sun, I'm sorry. Yu Jianming sighed. He was very guilty. He realized that under this attack, even if he risked his life, it would be of no use. Boom! The whirlpool came, and in an instant it swept Lin Sun and Yu Jianming together. The crowd was shocked. This was only the third test. Was Demon God Lin going to suffer? Despicable! In the distance, Bai Lingshi was furious and couldn't calm down. Is Demon God Lin going to die? Wu Duanya found it hard to believe. He was stunned by this sudden good news. Li Qinghuan also frowned, a little uncertain. At this moment, all the experts on the nearby sea were paying close attention. The whirlpool roared and the waves surged, sweeping around. Lin Sun and Yu Jianming could no longer be seen. Were they really going to suffer and be eliminated? Ha ha ha, what bullsh ** T Demon God Lin. I just used a little trick and he couldn't resist it. He's too weak. In the distance, Sha Luchan looked up to the sky and laughed. He was very proud of himself. Previously in Star Cliff City, he had been defeated by Lin Sun and lost face in front of countless people. He took it as a great shame. But now, he finally turned the situation around and washed away the shame. Humph! Nearby there was a cold snort. Peerless figures like Yu Lingkong, Qing Lianer and Zhua Quanglan were very unhappy. They originally planned to kill Lin Sun when they reached the green lamp tree. They didn't expect that Sha Luchan would take the initiative to attack on the sea. Seeing that Lin Sun might already be in trouble, they were a little unwilling. Noticing these unhappy gazes, Sha Luchan became more and more complacent. Demon God Lin was so arrogant, but in the end, he was suppressed by him alone. This made him feel an unprecedented satisfaction. Don't you think it's shameful to take advantage of others' difficulties and laugh so hard? Some experts who admired Lin Sun cursed in their hearts. They thought that Sha Luchan's move was too insidious and unfair. But he didn't feel ashamed. Instead, he felt proud, which made others despise him. Everyone, Devil God Lin has encountered such a calamity and will definitely suffer from qi deviation during his advancement. His cultivation will be crippled. Do you think that I, Sha Luchan, am acting on behalf of the heavens today and eradicating a scourge for the Western Heng world? Ha! As he spoke, Sha Luchan couldn't help laughing again, which showed how happy he was. Some peerless figures couldn't stand it anymore. It was just a successful sneak attack. Was it worth being so proud and complacent? Look! Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Everyone looked up and saw that the whirlpool that was still swirling on the surface of the sea suddenly exploded. Splash! Water droplets shot in all directions like water arrows, dazzling. At the same time, a golden lotus swept out and moved horizontally like a divine rainbow, plowing a straight gully on the sea like a sharp cone breaking through the waves. Two figures stood on the golden lotus. One was Yu Jianming. And the other was Lin Sun. His sleeves and black hair fluttered in the wind. His tall and handsome figure was filled with brilliance. As his black eyes opened and closed, a cold light surged, incomparably frightening. Everyone was stunned. They almost couldn't believe their eyes. Just now, such a terrifying tidal whirlpool swept over, but demon god Lin didn't suffer? Wasn't he at the critical moment of advancement? How could he still have the strength to fight back? What on earth happened? He's advanced. In the distance, Li Qinghuan's eyes were like lightning. At the same time, many peerless figures noticed that Lin Sun's aura had transformed. It was even more terrifying than before. It was deep and unfathomable. It seems that he successfully entered the middle level of reincarnation development at the most dangerous moment. He avoided the danger of qi deviation and also resolved his own predicament. Someone murmured, How could this be? Wu Duanyao was startled. He was overjoyed. Who would have thought that the result would be reversed? I knew it. Since he dared to break through to the next realm on the floating sea, he must have something to rely on. He wouldn't die so easily. A smile appeared at the corner of Bai Lingshi's mouth. The anxiety and anger in her heart were swept away. This was the Lin Sun she knew. He always surprised people. At this time, Sha Luchan, who was laughing triumphantly, was like a duck that had its neck grabbed. His voice stopped abruptly and his smile froze. How is this possible? His pupils dilated. He couldn't accept it. His face suddenly turned livid. Before, he was so high-spirited and proud. But now, he was shocked and angry as if he had been struck by lightning. The contrast was too great. The crowd felt pity for him. Sha Luchan was going to be unlucky. Chapter 898. Yu Lingkong, Ji Xingyao, and the others narrowed their eyes. Lin Sun didn't encounter any difficulties. Instead, he made a breakthrough in a dangerous situation which surprised them. Immediately, they all looked at Sha Luchan with a hint of playfulness in their eyes. What Sha Luchan did just now was too dazzling. He was so complacent that they were quite dissatisfied. I heard that you are good at playing with water. Why don't we play together? Lin Sun's cold eyes were fixed on Sha Luchan in the distance. His qi surged and emitted a horrible aura. Humph! Although Sha Luchan was surprised, he was not afraid of Lin Sun. Clatter! However, before he could speak, Lin Sun waved his sleeve in the distance. Suddenly, thousands of blades formed by seawater gushed out from the sea. Every blade was a foot long, and they were formed purely from seawater. They were sparkling and translucent, glaring and incomparably sharp. Water as a blade. The crowd gasped. This seawater wasn't ordinary water, and every single drop was over 5,000 kilograms in weight. Now, it was condensed into a myriad of blades that covered the heavens and the earth. Sharp lights filled the sky, and the scene was too terrifying. No! Sha Luchan was shocked and sensed the danger. Go! Lin Sun stood on the lotus boat and stretched out his hand in the void. The blades made a buzzing sound and tore the void. In the eyes of outsiders, Lin Sun was like a sword immortal at this moment. He controlled countless blades and swept across the floating and sinking sea. Whoosh whoosh, the void was torn like a piece of cloth. The dazzling blades whizzed away. It was as if thousands of troops and horses were killing each other. The horrible killing intent spread out. He's too strong. The spectating experts were all stunned by the scene before them. His grasp of the grand Tao of water has already attained the state of Tao insight, and it's extraordinary to the point of perfection. He's able to condense water into a blade with a flick of his sleeve, and very few people in the younger generation are capable of accomplishing this. Someone sighed with emotion. The onlookers all nodded. Tao was the power that could only be mastered by practitioners in the reincarnation developing realm. But it didn't mean that every practitioner in the reincarnation developing realm could master the power of Tao. On the contrary, it was absolutely 1 in a million that could master the power of Tao in this realm. It was none other than because the energy of the Grand Tao was too obscure and profound, and it wasn't something that could be easily comprehended and grasped. It required fortune, and fortune, The Tao Insight realm far exceeded the most basic Tao Insight realm, and it was even more difficult to grasp it. Even amongst the geniuses present here, most of them had only grasped the energy of the Grand Tao at the level of Tao Aura, and only a small group of them had grasped the energy of Tao Insight. Therefore, when they saw Lin Sun's magical power of Tao at this moment, it attracted so many people's surprised eyes. Rise! Facing the 10,000 blades, Xiaoyuchan's countenance turned solemn. Blood qi surged around him as his sleeves fluttered in the wind. His aura rose to the extreme as he clasped his hands together, as though he was supporting yin and yang. On the surface of the sea, walls of water rushed out. These walls of water were hundreds of feet tall and 10 feet thick. Just as they appeared on the surface of the sea, they quickly solidified and turned into walls of ice. From afar, they looked like icebergs floating in the sea. Bang! 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 Thousands of water blades swept over, and in an instant, more than 10 ice walls were cut open. With a roar, ice chips burst and flew everywhere. Although many of the water blades were blocked and neutralized in the process, there were still many more that came rushing over. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the dense rainstorm of water blades broke through all obstacles like a whirlwind sweeping away clouds. Rise! Xiaoluchan was frightened and stiffened. Aware of the danger, he roared and ran all his strength to the extreme. His blood qi soared to the sky, and he was extremely powerful. Boom! On the surface of the sea, ice walls rose one by one to defend the surroundings. They were crystal clear and filled with pure spiritual power and Tao insight. They were even stronger than an iron wall. Clang, clang, clang. The sharp water blades shot over and collided with the ice walls, making a harsh sound like metal clashing. Many experts nearby felt their blood boiling, and they had no choice but to stay far away for fear of being affected. However, in just a moment, the ice walls were destroyed again, cut into ice chips, and fell into the sea. At the same time, hundreds of water blades rushed to Xiaoluchan. Xiaoluchan's expression changed greatly. He obviously hadn't expected the power of these water blades to be so terrifying. A water blade swept past, leaving a bloody mark on his cheek, and then a strand of his long hair was cut off. It was only a hair's breadth away from his face. Bang! His figure trembled, and a bloody hole was pierced through his right arm. Blood spurted out. It wasn't that Xiaoluchan couldn't resist, but there were too many water blades, and they poured down like a torrential rain. He had tried his best to disperse them, but he still couldn't avoid being injured. Bang! Bang! The water blade shone resplendently, carrying with it a terrifyingly sharp killing intent. Xiaoluchan roared as he tried to resist it, but his body was shaken to the point where his blood and qi surged, and he almost coughed up blood. Most importantly, he couldn't fly into the air. He could only use the lotus boat to dodge, and the lotus boat needed his own cultivation to control, which made his speed much slower. Ah! Xiaoluchan roared. His eyes were bloodshot, and his whole body was surging with divine light. Even though he had exerted all his strength, he could only passively resist. In the eyes of outsiders, they saw expanse after expanse of snow-white and resplendent water blades slash down, enveloping Xiaoluchan's entire body within them. Every single slash caused his entire body to tremble as he endured unimaginable impact. When all the water blades were dissolved, Xiaoluchan was already bathed in blood. Every inch of his skin was trembling and twitching, and his face was distorted. Puff! He couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. He also suffered internal injuries. The power contained in the water blades was fierce, overbearing, and condensed, with extremely terrible destructive aura. There was dead silence in the field. All of this happened in just a few breaths of time. From beginning to end, Lin Sun only used one blow. With a wave of his sleeve, thousands of water blades rose into the air, cut the void, covered the sky, and stirred up the wind and clouds. As for Xiaoluchan, He was an extremely famous peerless character, but under this attack, he was unable to block it and was seriously injured. This kind of method could be said to be shocking. For a moment, all the heroes were stunned. Even peerless figures such as Yu Lingkong, Ji Xingyao, and Mu Jianting couldn't stay calm. After the promotion, Lin Sun showed far more terrifying combat power than before, which made them feel a heavy pressure. Ouch! Suddenly, someone screamed and fell from the lotus boat. He was drowned by the sea and eliminated. It turned out that this person was only watching the battle. His state of mind was affected by the strange power from the floating sea, so he was eliminated. It was funny, but it could also be seen that this battle, though short, caused a great shock. All of a sudden, the heroes calmed down and became vigilant. After all, this was the third assessment. The power of the floating sea had a terrible impact on the state of mind. One careless move would lead to elimination. Is it fun? In the distance, Lin Sun's sleeves fluttered in the wind. He looked at Sha Luchan coldly. "You're courting death," Sha Luchan roared. He was covered in blood and seriously injured. His heart was full of shame and anger, and he was about to go crazy. "It seems that you're going to continue to play." Lin Sun waved his sleeves. Whoosh! Thousands of glittering water blades swept out, covering the void, shining with peerless sharpness. In an instant, the dense water blades flew across the sky. Shalyochan's face changed wildly. He had seen the horror of this power. How could he choose to fight it head-on? He immediately drove the lotus boat with all his strength and fled to the distance. He ran away. All the heroes were stunned. Even Lin Sun was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that a character like Sha Luchan would choose to retreat without a fight. "Lin Sun, when we arrive at the ancient path green lamp tree, I will show you my real power." In the distance, Shalyochan's resentful roar came. There was an undisguised threat in his words. "Don't you think it's ridiculous that you don't even have the courage to play with me in the water?" Lin Sun looked cold. He didn't chase after Sha Luchan. The reason was very simple. He didn't want Sha Luchan to be eliminated. If he wanted to fight, he would kill him once and for all. This guy is smart. He knows that he can't compete with Lin Sun under the control of the Tao of Water, so he chose to retreat for the time being, Li Qinghuan said in a low voice. "You mean, he was not scared off?" Wu Duanyao was stunned. Sha Luchan comes from the Fiend Demon Sea and is known as one of the top 10 geniuses of the Fiend Demon Sea. Their Sea Shark clan is also an overlord of a region, and a true saint once emerged from their ancestor. People like him must have a powerful weapon that can save their lives. Li Qinghuan said casually, and this is why he dares to threaten Lin Sun. Sha Luchan retreated without a fight. This shocked all the strong people present. No one laughed at Shalyochan's weakness. They were shocked by Lin Sun's fighting strength. He was too strong. Even a peerless figure was easily injured by him, scaring him to the point of retreating. It was truly hard to imagine just how powerful he was. Other peerless figures had different thoughts. They were thinking about their own things, silently comparing themselves with Lin Sun and analyzing. After Lin Sun's advancement, he became more and more powerful. This made them feel pressure, and they had to take him seriously. For a time, the murderous aura and hostility no longer filled the floating submerged sea. Instead, it had become quiet. Lin Sun didn't care about this. He had just reached the middle level of reincarnation developing, so he didn't have time to feel the changes in his strength. He sat there cross-legged and continued to meditate. His expression was calm and composed, ignoring all kinds of gazes from all directions. Half a day later, in the distance, a coastline could be seen, stretching up and down. There was no doubt that it was the land on the other side of the floating sea. Arriving there was equivalent to successfully passing the third test. However, along the way, many strong people had unfortunately been eliminated. Now there were only less than 1,000 strong people who could persist until here. Chapter 899. When the Tao discussion lantern meeting began, there were over 10,000 geniuses from different areas of the West Shore world participating. However, when the third test of the Tao discussion was about to end, there were only over 1,000 people left, and the elimination rate was undoubtedly too shocking. Lin Sun, we're almost there. Yu Jiaming heaved a sigh of relief. He'd been tense all along the way, and he was deeply afraid that something unexpected would occur. Only now did he dare to relax a little. Lin Sun stood up from meditation and stood on the lotus petal as he looked into the distance. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he emanated an otherworldly aura. They hadn't encountered any more twists and turns along the way since they defeated Sha Luchan, and Lin Sun seized this opportunity to completely stabilize his cultivation. Not only that, his mental state was tempered at all times while crossing the floating sea, and it allowed Lin Sun to benefit greatly. The tenacity of his mental state was no different than a rock that had been tempered 100 times. His heart was like a rock, and he would remain motionless no matter what attacked him. This had an immeasurable effect on the cultivation of the great Tao. At least when he advanced and broke through in the future, ordinary tribulations were utterly unable to affect Lin Sun's mind. I can feel that my mental state seems to have received a brand new baptism and sublimation, and it's even firmer on my path, said Yu Jiaming. Obviously, it wasn't just Lin Sun. Yu Jiaming and the other geniuses had definitely obtained benefits in this test. We're here. The coastline was in sight, and Lin Sun saw that many experts had come ashore and revealed expressions of relief. When he looked back, the floating sea was surging with magnificent waves, and it caused Lin Sun to feel a trace of reluctance. Although the floating sea was dangerous, it was a blessed place to temper one's mental state. If he could cultivate here for a period of time, it would be sufficient to allow his mental state to undergo even more transformation. Unfortunately, this was a fortuitous opportunity, and it only came once. The fourth test was called Soul Lamp, and it tested the strength of one's soul. Before the test began, over 1,000 experts including Lin Sun were teleported to an open field through the talismans in their hand. The veil of night enveloped the sky, and it was pitch black. Looking up, one could see lanterns floating in the void that was tens of thousands of zhang high up in the sky. Each of them was the size of a fist, and they seemed to be polished from crystals and glowed with a soft silver luster. These were soul lamps, treasures forged from a divine material called true void soul crystal that had gone extinct in the world since a long time ago. Divine material! Just this word alone was enough to prove how precious and rare a soul lamp was. This trial tests the strength of one's soul. Astral winds, baleful auras, chaotic flows, and tribulation lightning are everywhere in the sky. If one wishes to light a soul lamp, one must use the strength of one's nascent soul to charge up into the sky. The stronger one's soul core is, the greater one's chances of passing through the test. In the past Tao Lantern discussions, even though the fourth level didn't have the highest elimination rate, it was the most difficult. The group of experts discussed with solemn expressions. To be able to pass the first 3 tests and arrive here, practically all of them were top-notch geniuses. But now, none of them dared to be careless. Yu Jiaming said in a low voice, "We don't have to worry about being ambushed in this round. Once someone makes a move, they'll be immediately eliminated." Lin Sun nodded. He glanced around and saw Sha Luchan in the crowd. This guy was calm and collected, without the attitude that a loser should have. When he noticed Lin's gaze, he even smiled and silently made a gesture of cutting the neck. This provocation was too obvious. Obviously, he saw that Lin Sun didn't dare to make a move in this wilderness. This guy is really thick-skinned. Yu Jiaming frowned. Lin Sun asked, "Have you ever eaten sea shark meat?" Yu Jiaming was stunned. "No." Lin Sun smiled and said, "When I kill that guy, let's have a taste of this seafood together. I've eaten black sea dog meat before, and it's delicious. But I don't know how sea shark meat tastes." Yu Jiaming looked strange. This guy was not only bold, but also had an extraordinary appetite. Seafood? The nearby experts looked strange. It was the first time that they heard someone dared to regard Sha Luchan, the holy son of Sea Shark Clan, as a seafood delicacy. In the distance, Sha Luchan's face darkened. He couldn't calm down anymore. His heart was burning with hatred. He thought to himself, Demon God Lin, when we arrive at the ancient path green lamp tree, I'll let you know what it means to beg for death. A strand of the sound of the Tao that sounded like the sound of nature resounded in the night sky, and the soul lamps that were originally silent and motionless began to sway at this moment and flutter in the sky. Whoosh! All eyes looked over in an instant. The fourth test had begun. Outside Kangwu Mountain. The fourth test has begun. It is said that in ancient times, only the top super-orthodoxies would have the inheritance of soul lamp. As long as a disciple can light up the soul lamp, it means that the power of his soul can illuminate his own path and seek the true secrets of the King realm. Yes, the soul is like a lamp, illuminating one's own body. If one can pass this test, it means that he has the potential to cast his Tao and become a king. The great Tao is within reach. Many big shots were talking. It's not that simple to light the soul lamp. The power of the soul lamp is different, and the potential to become a king is also different. Suddenly, Grandma Golden Crane said, generally speaking, the power of the soul lamp is divided into 3 realms: shining, and like the sun in the sky. These 3 realms are unrelated to one's natural talent and potential, and it only targets the soul. The soul lamp that one's soul possesses with ordinary strength can only be lit up at the shining level, whereas those with formidable strength of the soul are able to light up a soul lamp at the shining level. As for the soul lamp at the like the sun in the sky level, that's hard to say. It's related to the intrinsic profundities of the soul, so even saints are unable to make an accurate judgment. When the sect master of my Truth-Seek Sword House, Mu Tsangxue, participated in the Tao Lantern discussion at a young age, he'd once lit up a soul lamp at the like the sun in the sky level. After that, he utilized less than 100 years of time to step into the king realm and stand at the peak of the world. Now, he's only half a step away from stepping into the saint realm. When this secret was mentioned, all the great figures in the surroundings were extremely moved. In the past, they'd never known that Mu Tsangxue actually possessed such a shocking and extraordinary display all those years ago. Looks like your Truth-Seek Sword House will have another peerless figure like Sect Master Mu Tsangxue. A great figure sighed with emotion. Ji Xingyao really is a rare peerless genius. However, besides her, the other peerless figures aren't inferior to her as well. The other great figures spoke as well. Granny Golden Crane shook her head and said, all of you're wrong. The 4th test isn't related to natural endowment or natural talent, and it targets the soul. Moreover, the Tao Lantern discussion this time is unlike the past. I'm afraid many unexpected things will occur during the test of the soul lamp. Everyone was stunned, and they fell into deep thought. The veil of night was dark like ink. All the experts sat cross-legged on the open field, and they circulated the energy of their soul cores with all their might as they charged up into the sky. For a time, dazzling and multicolored strands of soul energy surged out from the heads of various experts, and they flashed through the sky like divine rays of light. Some of these strands of soul energy were bright and clear, some were condensed and deep. Some were scarlet-red like flames, and they blazed fiercely. Some surged and possessed an imposing aura that was like smoke. This was the quality of the soul. At ordinary times, it was very difficult to distinguish the strong from the weak by merely looking at it. However, during the 4th test of the soul lamps, the soul energy of over 1,000 geniuses was bound to be decided upon. The weak were bound to be eliminated. On the other hand, the stronger experts had the chance to light the soul lamp and pry into the essence of their soul from the energy emanated by the soul lamp. The scene was deathly silent. numerous souls shot into the sky like numerous divine rays of light under the veil of night, and they emanated their own brilliance. But in next to no time, muffled groans and groans of pain resounded. In the sky, gales that were like blades emanated ear-piercing howls. These gales weren't ordinary gales, and they possessed the energy of annihilation and were capable of blowing apart the souls of cultivators. At the same time, a black baleful chi swept out. Once the energy of the soul was tainted by it, it would cause layer upon layer of illusions to appear, and it would cause one to lose one's mind. In severe cases, one's soul would fall into oblivion. Besides the gales and baleful chi, the higher one went in the sky, the more terrifying it was. There were surging, flowing, and chaotic flows of light that surged like fine and turbulent rivers. There were also strands of tribulation lightning that were like fine rays of light. They seemed to be fine to the point of being illusory, yet they carried a lethal and destructive force towards the soul. As time went by, some expert souls were attacked by the gales before they had the time to fly higher up in the sky. They suffered heavy injuries and retreated in defeat. Then, they let out muffled groans and screams, and they were eliminated with strong unwillingness. There were also some experts who were extremely outstanding and stunning. They charged all the way through the gales, withstood the baleful chi, flashed past the flowing and chaotic flows, and rushed to a higher place in the sky. For example, Ji Xingyao's soul power was as pure as snow, ethereal and holy. She charged straight up and seemed unstoppable all the way. She was far ahead of the others, but when she entered the area densely covered with tribulation lightning, she encountered obstacles and had no choice but to resist with all her might. There were many people like Ji Xingyao, such as Yu Lingkong, Mu Jianting, and Lei Qianjun. They were also ahead of the majority and rushed with all their might. These were peerless figures. Since they dared to be crowned with the title of peerless, it showed that whether it was their aptitude, talent, cultivation, or soul, they were far beyond ordinary and stood above ordinary cultivators. During this process, Lin Sun seemed to be very low-key. He had already cultivated the spirit of the spirit, so he didn't have to worry about the test of the soul lamp. At this time, he was perceiving the different forces in the void with his soul power. The gales, the baleful chi, the flowing and chaotic flows, were all carefully perceived by his soul power, trying to figure out and study them. This was also a kind of cognitive cultivation. It was not only as simple as broadening his horizons and increasing his cultivation knowledge, but also of immeasurable help to his future cultivation. The so-called cultivation was a process of seeing the sky, the earth, and oneself. The search for the Great Way was actually a kind of understanding and cognition of the world and oneself. The higher one's cultivation was, the more he needed to understand the nature of the Great Way of heaven and earth. Otherwise, he would only be stagnant on the road of cultivation. Suddenly, Lin Sun inadvertently noticed that a spiritual power had caught up with him and rushed up at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving some peerless figures behind along the way. Chapter 900. By Lingshi. In an instant, Lin Sun saw through the identity of that spiritual power, which surprised him greatly. In his cognition, Bai Lingshi was not a peerless figure. At most, she could be called a top talent, but her spirit power was amazing. Up to now, she had surpassed Mu Jianting, Lei Qianjun and others, and chased Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong who were higher. And according to this trend, it would not be long before she became the first person to rush into the void. There was a burst of surprised voices nearby. Obviously, they also noticed this unusual scene. I remember that when I was in the bloodthirsty camp of Xiao Empire, Bai Lingshi once said that she had an extremely unique talent attribute, eternal starshine. Soon, Lin Sun understood the reason. Eternal starshine was a talent derived from the soul. Although it was rated as the fourth talent in the empire at that time, Bai Lingshi undoubtedly became the most dazzling character in this test of lighting soul lamp. Her spiritual power showed a kind of brilliant golden color, with a sense of solemnity that shone through the ages, which was different from the others. I knew that with her qualifications and talents, she would shine one day sooner or later. Lin Sun was very happy. He and Bai Lingshi were classmates. Seeing her outstanding performance, Lin Sun also felt a sense of pride and honor. But soon, Lin Sun's face darkened. In the distance, Yu Jiaming's divine soul was moving forward with great difficulty amidst the black baleful aura. But right at this moment, several other divine soul energies rushed over and intentionally blocked Yu Jiaming's path, obstructing and disturbing him. This was too insidious and despicable. Lin Sun noticed that the several spiritual powers came from the strong practitioners of Cyan Phoenix clan and Zhongli clan. There were 5 people targeting Yu Jiaming. Lin Sun didn't need to think at all to know that the reason why they attacked Yu Jiaming was nothing more than because of him. As early as a long time ago, Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer had threatened that whoever made friends with Lin Sun would suffer. In this way, they threatened the practitioners of Shiheng World to stay away from Lin Sun and make him completely alone. Obviously, Yu Jiaming had also encountered such an impact. You're courting death. Lin Sun manipulated the spiritual power and suddenly moved in the void, rushing towards Yu Jiaming. Aren't you being too shameless by doing this? Yu Jiaming's soul shook as he angrily berated. The energy of his soul was tainted by strands of black baleful qi, and the nearby paths were obstructed by those 5 strands of soul energy. If he didn't break out of the encirclement as soon as possible, then he would surely be eliminated. Haha, you can't blame us for that. You can only blame yourself for being too close to that demon god Lin. Someone sneered. Aren't you afraid that Lin will come looking for you? Yu Jiaming was furious in his heart. These guys didn't dare to target Lin Sun, but pointed the spearhead at him. It was despicable to the extreme. Him? Haha, can't you see? He's still trapped in the bottommost layer of the void until now, and we're all wondering if he'll be able to pass the test this time. Hee, who would have thought that Fiend Celestial Lin's combat strength is so powerful, but his soul's strength is so weak? Obviously, they all mistakenly thought that the reason why Lin Sun lingered in the astral wind was that his soul power was too weak, so he could bully Yu Jiaming without fear. As for why they didn't bully Lin Sun, it was simple. They didn't want Lin Sun to be eliminated in this way. Whether it was Qing Lianer or Zhongli Wuji, they were waiting to kill Lin Sun when they arrived at the Green Lamp Tree. Therefore, these strong people from Cyan Phoenix clan and Zhongli clan all chose to target Yu Jiaming. Just give up. Lin Sun can't even protect himself. It's impossible for him to save you, a person said in a cold voice. They were very smart. They knew that in this 4th test, fighting was not allowed, and even soul attacks were forbidden. So they chose to block the surroundings and cut off Yu Jiaming's way, using the power of black baleful qi to achieve the purpose of defeating and eliminating Yu Jiaming. Really? At this moment, a cold voice sounded. Those strong people were stunned. In an instant, they saw that Lin Sun's soul power had rushed to the vicinity and entrenched there. The nearby black baleful qi didn't dare to approach. Oh no! Damn it, how could this be? Their faces changed greatly, and they hurriedly manipulated their soul power to escape. However, at this moment, Lin Sun's soul power suddenly shone, like a whirlpool storm, sweeping away all the nearby black baleful qi. Then, other strong people nearby saw Lin Sun's soul power wrapped in rolling black baleful qi, rushing towards the soul power of those who were fleeing. He didn't attack, but just passed by, blocking in front of them, and then released all the extracted black baleful qi. In an instant, the soul power of those strong people was submerged by the black baleful qi. No! Damn it! Demon Lin, you will die a horrible death! Shrill and angry screams sounded, making people's scalp numb. Some of the nearby experts who saw this scene gasped. This fiend god Lin is truly ruthless. He actually used such methods to defeat the 5 experts from the Azure Phoenix clan and Zhongli clan in one fell swoop. There was no doubt that these 5 people would not only be eliminated, but even their souls might be seriously injured. "You're courting death." Higher in the void, Qing Lian shouted coldly and loudly. "Lin Sun, how dare you do such a despicable thing? Just you wait, when we reach the green lamp tree of ancient path, I, Zhongli Wuji, will do what I say and kill you first." At the same time, Zhongli Wuji's face turned blue, and he threatened. There weren't many talents who could reach the 4th test. Lin Sun's attack was equivalent to completely wiping out all the strong people from Zhongli clan and Cyan Phoenix clan, except Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lian. How could they not be angry? What a joke! Your people started it first, but now you're blaming me and calling me shameless and despicable. I've never seen such shameless people like you. Lin Sun sneered. As he spoke, he no longer hesitated and drove his soul power to the sky, like a storm. Rumble, the black baleful chi and flowing light turbulence they encountered along the way were like decorations. Not only could they not stop Lin Sun, but they were also smashed, forcibly crushing a straight blank space. Seeing this, the other strong people who were struggling to move forward were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out. Wasn't this too fierce? Before, Lin Sun didn't show his strength, calmly perceiving and experiencing the power distributed in the void, and was regarded by other practitioners as weak in soul power. But now, only then did they suddenly realize that how was this fiend god Lin's divine soul weak? It was clearly tyrannical to a ridiculous extent. Whoosh! Yu Jianming reacted the fastest. Seeing this excellent opportunity, his soul power suddenly rushed up and chased after the blank space Lin Sun had created. The other strong people were stunned for a moment, and then they immediately understood and shouted to do the same. Unfortunately, when they arrived, the blank space had disappeared, and it was filled with black baleful chi and flowing light turbulence again. Oh no! High in the void, Qing Lian who was sprinting in the fine and dreamy thunder, suddenly found that Lin Sun was rushing towards her. Like a sharp awl, unstoppable and unstoppable, Lin Sun was too strong. Qing Lian was so shocked that she almost cried out. Realizing that something was wrong, she used all her strength to run her soul power and rushed forward, lest Lin Sun catch up with her. At the same time, Zhongli Wuji, whose soul power was in another area, also changed his face. Like Qing Lian he began to rush with all his strength. Both of them cursed in their hearts. This demon god Lin was too despicable. The weakness just now was obviously faked, causing their companion to be carelessly tricked and eliminated. And now, this guy even wanted to continue to harm them. If it was a real battle, the two would not be afraid, but the key was that the 4th test was a competition of soul power. At this time, they had already judged that Lin Sun's soul power was not weak at all, but on the contrary, it was terrifyingly strong. Under such circumstances, how could they dare to let Lin Sun come close? Run! The two of them felt extremely sullen, and they fled with boundless hatred. It was indeed too humiliating. Being seen by so many people as they fled, the two of them couldn't hold on to their faces. Fortunately, the two had acted in advance and were already high up in the void. Now that they sprinted with all their might, they quickly rushed to the high altitude. By the time Lin Sun caught up, it was already too late. High up in the sky, soul lamps danced in the air. Without any obstructions, this meant that Lin Sun could no longer rely on the astral winds, baleful chi, flowing lights, or any other sort of calamities to deal with Qing Lian and Zhongli Wuji. Even so, the other powerhouses who witnessed the entire process were secretly shocked. Demon God Lin's soul power was too strong, forcing Qing Lian and Zhongli Wuji to flee in panic. Lin Sun, I will definitely cut you into pieces. Qing Lian regained her composure. Thinking of what happened just now, she felt extremely humiliated. Bitch, stop causing trouble. Lin Sun's counterattack was very simple. With just a few words, Qing Lian was so angry that her face turned green. Zhongli Wuji did not utter a single word, but it was not difficult to see from his livid expression that he had a belly full of rage that he had nowhere to vent. At this time, a soul lamp in the distance suddenly lit up, producing a strange fluctuation that spread in the high altitude. In an instant, all the powerhouses saw that the soul lamp began to shine brighter and brighter, sprinkling out strands of dreamy divine splendor. Dazzling. This was the first level of the soul lamp's power. But before the powerhouses had time to exclaim in admiration, the soul lamp grew brighter and brighter, sprinkling out countless rays of radiant divine splendor, illuminating the night sky around it. The second level of the soul lamp, great light. Whose soul power was this? How could it be so strong that it lit up such a bright soul lamp in the blink of an eye? Chapter 901. That soul lamp was resplendent and radiated a myriad of lights. It was exceptionally bright and eye-catching in the night. This was the first soul lamp to be lit after the fourth round of the exam began, but it had already revealed an extraordinary and shocking aura. It shone brightly. This undoubtedly meant that the strength of one's soul had reached the peak of the reincarnation development realm. The soul was like a lamp that illuminated one's body. The soul was immortal, and the soul lamp would shine forever. The most important thing to become a monarch was the soul. Why were monarchs able to transcend the 5 great realms of cultivation? Why was the monarch realm called the life and death realm? The reason was life and death. To cultivators, the existence of the soul was related to the secrets of life and death. As the saying went, death was like a lamp going out. Once a cultivator's soul was extinguished, it also meant true death. Therefore, if one wanted to break through life and death to become a monarch, the soul was undoubtedly the most important. As for above the monarch realm, it was the path to immortality. It was a higher realm of cultivation, and it sought to compete with the sun and moon and live as long as the ages. All the geniuses that were participating in the Tao discussion this time were figures that had the ambition to seek the path of becoming an emperor in the upcoming battle of the Grand Era. Almost all of them knew the importance of the strength of the soul to becoming a monarch. So, all of them were extremely shocked when they saw the first expert to light up his soul lamp actually reveal the phenomenon of great radiance from his body. Who has such strength of the soul? Soon, the crowd saw a divine soul that was as white as snow and carried the aura of the annals of spring flowing into the lamp. The owner of the divine soul was none other than Bai Lingshi. It's her, the successor of the southern Xian world's pure land of longevity. Everyone was slightly surprised, and there was no lack of envy and yearning. I heard that every soul lamp contains different profundities and is branded with a mysterious aura of inheritance. It's immeasurably beneficial to tempering the strength of the soul. That's right. The brighter the soul lamp, the greater the benefits. This is a secret that the seniors of my clan have warned us about. The sounds of discussion resounded. Arriving at this height in the sky was equivalent to possessing the qualifications to light up a soul lamp. However, exactly which soul lamp one should light up was something that required great consideration. Those soul lamps danced in the air like stars circulating in the sky. Some soul lamps were extremely far away, as if they were in the depths of the sky. Some of the soul lamps were floating around, visible to the naked eye. According to the experience of the past Tao Lantern discussions, the higher the soul lamp, the better its quality, but correspondingly, it's harder to light it up. Don't bite off more than you can chew. We've already reached the 30,000-meter mark, and have the qualifications to light up our soul lamp. We have the qualifications to pass the trial. We are much stronger than those who have been eliminated. Indeed. Let's begin. As they conversed, there were already experts who started searching for a suitable soul lamp for themselves and then tried to light it up. During this entire process, there were still numerous experts charging up with great difficulty from high up in the sky. At the same time, there were experts that had been eliminated. Lin Sun was not in a hurry. He was observing and perceiving. The soul lamps seemed as if they were made from pure glazed jade, and they emanated an ancient aura. They were like numerous stars that fluttered in the sky and flickered with a mysterious glow. Lin Sun noticed that, unlike other experts, peerless figures such as Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, Mu Jianting, and Lei Qianjun were not in a hurry to act. Instead, they were spreading their divine soul power to sense and communicate in the void. For example, Ji Xingyao's divine soul power produced wisps of clear cries at the moment, which evolved into a snow-white immortal phoenix. It spread its wings in the sky and danced around the soul lamp. Yu Lingkong's divine soul power turned into a golden Taoist bell, which emitted resonant sound waves that went straight to people's hearts to sense different soul lamps. The most eye-catching one was Mu Jianting. He was the successor of Yushu Temple. At this moment, his divine soul power had evolved into a pattern of yin-yang fish, which rotated slowly in the void. It was extremely mysterious. In addition, the divine soul power of some other peerless figures also showed different wonderful forms. Obviously, they all had mastered the secret method of divine soul. At this time, they no longer held back and tried their best to find the most suitable soul lamp for themselves. This was the resources and reserves of the inheritors of ancient sections. They didn't lack resources, secret techniques, or masters. Coupled with their own extraordinary natural talent and natural endowments, they were bound to far surpass ordinary people on the path of cultivation and shine brilliantly. Take the inheritance of the divine soul secret method, for example, Yu Jianming, who was born in an ordinary orthodoxy in the fire spirit state, was destined to be unable to have it. In other words, only the top ancient orthodoxies in the world could have the inheritance of the divine soul secret method. Lin Sun noticed that at this moment, many experts also reached the sky and successfully lit a soul lamp. But the soul lamps lit by most of them were of ordinary quality. They only emitted brilliant light like the light of a small lantern, which could barely be called shining. Even the soul lamps lit by some experts couldn't even be called shining. The strength of the divine souls of the sky prides was clearly displayed at this moment. Buzz! Suddenly, high up in the night sky, a snow-white immortal phoenix formed by Ji Xingyao's divine soul power lit a soul lamp. In an instant it emitted extremely shocking fluctuations and burst out with dazzling brilliance. Its radiance was endless, shining brilliantly. However, this wasn't the end of it. Under the shocked gazes of everyone present, the soul lamp that Ji Xingyao lit up actually grew brighter and more dazzling. In the end, it seemed like a sun that hung high in the sky, illuminating the world. The quality of the divine soul was like the sun at high noon. Fairy Ji deserves to be the leader of the younger generation in our West Hung world. Such divine soul power is enough to easily forge the Tao and become a king. How extraordinary! According to rumor, the current sect master of the Profound Inquisition Sword School, Mu Tsangxue, revealed the phenomenon of his soul glowing brilliantly during the Tao discussion lantern discussion. There's no doubt that the strength of Fairy Ji's soul is superior to Senior Mu Tsangxue's. For a time, a burst of exclamations, envy, and admiration sounded in the field. Congratulations, Xingyao! With the natural endowment of your divine soul, you'll definitely be able to become eminent in the battles of the world in the future and obtain the grand Tao of the ultimate king realm. Yu Lingkong spoke in a clear voice and congratulated her. Brother Yu, you're too kind. Ji Xingyao's voice was flat as she replied. If I'm not wrong, then Brother Yu has probably locked onto a soul lamp as well, right? Xingyao really is discerning. Yu Lingkong smiled light-heartedly, and then the golden bell formed from the energy of his divine soul suddenly rumbled. Clang! In the next moment, a soul lamp was lit up. It illuminated the sky and emanated boundless divine radiance. It was brilliant like the sun as it hung in the sky. When looked at from afar, His and Ji Xingyao's soul lamps seemed to have formed the grand phenomenon of two suns illuminating the world. Everyone was speechless, and they were completely shocked. In the past Tao Lantern discussions, being able to produce the phenomenon of the sun at high noon could already be considered as shocking, and it was sufficient to cause a great uproar. Yet now, the phenomenon of two suns contrasting had appeared in the blink of an eye, and this was absolutely unprecedented. The Tao Lantern discussion this time really is unlike the past. Unprecedented karmic luck and fortune erupted from it. Perhaps this can be taken to be a sign that a great battle of the world is about to arrive? Many experts had various thoughts in their minds, and they were unable to calm down. In the following period of time, Mu Jianting, Lei Qianjun, Zhongli Wuji, Qing Lianer, and all these peerless figures had lit up their soul lamps successively. Their displays were extremely shocking as well, and it caused waves of uproar and acclaim with admiration. However, the grand phenomenon of the sun at high noon didn't appear again. Strictly speaking, the strength of their divine souls was between the sun at high noon and the radiance it emitted. If this was during the Tao Lantern discussion of the past, then it would be sufficient to be considered as unprecedented. However, with Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong before them, it caused them to be slightly inferior during the Tao Lantern discussion this time. Lin Sun had made a move since a long time ago. He'd spread out the energy of his divine soul and ceaselessly stretched it higher into the sky, and he sensed numerous soul lamps. However, up until now, he hadn't found a suitable soul lamp for himself, so he was unable to light it up. This made Lin Sun frown. Could it be that the higher the quality of the soul lamp, the rarer it was? At this time, his divine soul had reached a very high place in the sky, almost at the same level as the soul lamps lit by Lingshi and Yu Lingkong. But what made Lin Sun depressed was that there were only a few soul lamps in the void at this height, and none of them could be lit. "Ha, demon god Lin, isn't your divine soul very powerful? Why haven't you lit up your soul lamp yet? Is there something wrong with your divine soul?" Sha Luchan burst into laughter. He had already seen Lin Sun's somewhat embarrassing situation, so he naturally wouldn't miss such an opportunity to ridicule and make sarcastic remarks about Lin Sun. "That's for sure. Don't you see that there are many soul lamps near that position, but none of them has been lit up by his divine soul power? This can only prove that his divine soul power is not enough to light up a soul lamp at the level of the sun at high noon. Lin Sun, aren't you very arrogant? Why are you so listless this time? Come, quickly reveal your devil god might and light up a soul lamp for us to admire." After noticing this scene, old enemies, such as Qing Lianer and Zhongli Wuji, also seized the opportunity to criticize him. At this high altitude, they didn't worry at all that they would anger Lin Sun and suffer his revenge. Although the other experts did not say a word, they were very suspicious and perplexed. One had to know that fiend god Lin had charged through the entire way in a seemingly unstoppable manner. He had leaped to a height of 100,000 feet in a single leap. In the process, he also harmed 5 strong people from the Cyan Phoenix clan and the Zhongli clan. This made all the strong people believe that Lin Sun's divine soul power was absolutely strong. Many people even believed that only demon god Lin could compete with Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong. But now he couldn't light up a soul lamp. This was very shocking and puzzling. Could it be, as Sha Luchan said, that although Lin Sun's divine soul was strong, there was some kind of defect so that he couldn't light up a soul lamp? P.S. The 5th update is here. We've successfully completed the first day's goal. Tomorrow we'll continue. The time is almost the same as today. If there is any change, we'll inform you in advance. Chapter 902. At this moment, even Lingshi and Yu Lingkong were alarmed. They sensed the delicate situation Lin Sun was in. This shameless bastard has finally suffered a setback. Let's see how he'll deal with it this time. Lingshi gloated. At the same time, she felt strange. Even though she despised Lin Sun's shameless and obscene nature, she had to admit that Lin Sun had what it took to be proud of himself among the younger generation. But until now, he hadn't lit up a single soul lamp, which was very unusual. He's not good at anything, but he doesn't want to accept the reality. That's all he is. Yu Lingkong laughed inwardly. The soul was the key to becoming a king, and it even indicated the potential of becoming a king in the future. In Yu Lingkong's view, no matter how powerful Lin Sun was, if his soul was defective, even if he could enter the king realm in the future, his achievements would be limited. His current achievements might be amazing, but for the younger generation, what mattered was not the present, but the future. The great battle of the world was coming, and unprecedented opportunities and challenges would also appear. Under such circumstances, if Lin Sun's soul was defective, he was destined to be unable to compete with other peerless figures on the Great Way in the future. He might even be lost in the crowd. This was Yu Lingkong's point of view. In addition, Mu Jianting, Lei Qianjun, and the others also noticed this scene. They had no enmity with Lin Sun, nor did they have any contact with him before. But when they saw that demon god Lin, who had caused a great disturbance, was now in a worrying situation, they couldn't help but sigh with emotion. But soon, Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, and Mu Jianting all calmed down and stopped paying attention to him. They had all lit up their own soul lamps and were comprehending and figuring out the aura of the soul imprinted in the soul lamp. This was an extremely precious opportunity. Demon God Lin, accept the reality. Don't force yourself anymore. Don't you feel ashamed? Sha Luchan laughed. He was gloating. Now that he finally had a chance to attack Lin Sun, he wouldn't be polite. Lin Sun frowned. This guy was really noisy. He noticed that Sha Luchan's soul lamp was barely at the level of great light, which was even worse than Bai Lingshi's. Lin Sun really didn't know who gave this guy the courage to jump so happily and laugh at him. In addition to Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, Qing Lianer, and the others also wanted to hit Lin Sun when he was down. Of course, they could only say whatever they wanted and could not do any harm to Lin Sun. Crash! Suddenly, an amazing scene took place in the field. A purple spiritual power evolved into a big cauldron and rushed to the height of Lin's spiritual power. Then, a soul lamp was instantly lit up. From the initial dazzling to radiating brilliance and finally to like the sun in the sky, the entire process was completed in the blink of an eye. In an instant, the entire crowd was shocked and attracted to him. Who was it that actually lit up another soul lamp that was as bright as the midday sun? This seemed to be too unbelievable. In next to no time, everyone noticed that the person that accomplished this was a young woman in a violet dress. Her appearance was extremely outstanding. Her forehead was jade white and bright, and it surged with the sheen of wisdom. Her body was graceful while strands of pure violet-colored clouds seethed around her, causing her to seem mysterious and extraordinary. Roga, the descendant of the Mi Luo Palace from the Earth Imperial Universe. She was very mysterious. Since the beginning of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, her whereabouts had been elusive. She was like a cloud of smoke, and she came and went alone. In the first 3 tests, her performance was neither outstanding nor mediocre, so she did not attract much attention. But now, she had lit up a soul lamp that was as bright as the sun, stunning everyone. It's her. It seems that we have overlooked this mysterious descendant of the Mi Luo Palace. The crowd was surprised. The most incredible thing was that at this moment, Ji Xingyao took the initiative to congratulate her. Miss Roga is indeed worthy of being the current chief descendant of the Mi Luo Palace. With such a spiritual soul, you will have a bright future ahead of you. My friend, you flatter me. Roga's voice was as clear as water, just like her, as clear as an orchid in an empty valley. At the same time, Yu Lingkong also said, Roga? I heard that the senior Ling Juekong, who has been cultivating in closed-door cultivation for 8,000 years in the Mi Luo Palace, made an exception last year and took in a closed-door disciple. Her name is Roga. Is she the one? I didn't expect that this senior from the southern profound world's pure land of longevity would have heard of my name, Roga said softly. Haha, in the entire ancient desolation region, Senior Ling Juekong is a legendary sage. His sword Dao cultivation is superb and unpredictable. 8,000 years ago, he was already known as the Mi Luo Sword Saint. Yu Lingkong laughed heartily. My ancestor has always admired Senior Ling Juekong. I heard about Miss Roga being taken in as his closed-door disciple from my ancestor. His gasps could be heard from the audience. No one expected that the mysterious descendant of the Mi Luo Palace would be the closed-door disciple of a sword saint. A sage was like a divine dragon hiding in the abyss. Their whereabouts were untraceable, their power was unparalleled, and they possessed unfathomable supreme techniques. As for a sage who was famous for his sword Dao, his power was undoubtedly even more terrifying. Since Roga could become the closed-door disciple of a sword saint, it could be imagined how amazing her aptitude and foundation were. That old fool, Bai Fenglu, once said that Luo Jia was suspected to be related to the deity Phoenix clan. Her background was already shocking enough, but I didn't expect her to be the successor of a sword saint. Incredible! Lin Sun was also shocked. He had seen sages, such as the old ape in green robe hidden in the demon saint's secret realm, the white cicada, the golden cicada, and the bloody moth dormant in the mulberry forest of the bloodthirsty battlefield. Therefore, he knew how terrifying a figure who could set foot on the divine path was. Roga was accepted as the closed-door disciple by a sword saint at such a young age. It could be imagined that her foundation was absolutely extraordinary. There was silence in the field. Everyone's emotions were fluctuating. Only now did they realize that a low-key descendant of a sword saint was hiding in this Dao discussion lantern festival. It was a great shock to them. However, in this silent atmosphere, Xiaoyu Chan's extremely ear-piercing sneer sounded. Demon Lin, you should give up now. The soul lamp lit by Miss Roga was near you, but you couldn't do it before. You don't understand what this means, do you? Suddenly, the expressions of the crowd became strange. Although Sha Luchan was sarcastic and attacking Demon Lin, what he said was the truth. They had seen everything that happened just now. Humph, this guy obviously doesn't know his place. He thinks he is the same as Fairy Ji and Child Yu. What a wishful thinking. He doesn't know his place and will only make others laugh. Demon Lin, are you sure you want to continue to make a fool of yourself? Qing Lianer and Zhongli Wuji also spoke, their words full of disdain and mockery. They had been chased by Lin Sun like their butts were on fire before, and they had long held back their shame and hatred. At this time, they couldn't wait to trample on Lin Sun and humiliate him. Lin Sun was a little disgusted and disgusted. It felt like there were several flies buzzing around his ears, and he couldn't get rid of them. Your behavior reminds me of a saying, he suddenly said, arousing the curiosity of many experts. Everyone, take a look. Demon God Lin has flown into a rage out of humiliation. Is he going to defend himself? Save it. Don't embarrass yourself anymore. I'm ashamed for you. Sha Luchan sneered. Lin Sun didn't take it seriously and said to himself, this saying goes that summer insects can't talk about ice. People like you are even worse than summer insect. You've tarnished the word, heavenly sun. Sha Luchan was about to say something when he saw Lin Sun's spiritual power suddenly glowing in the sky. Although he hadn't lit up his soul lamp, his own spiritual power was like a sun, blooming with infinite light. Some experts felt that they couldn't look at it directly. It was too dazzling and dazzling. The crowd was shocked. They realized that Demon Lin was obviously angry. He had pushed his spiritual power to the extreme and was going to fight with all his strength. However, the strength of his soul was so terrifying, So why hadn't he lit up a single soul lamp until now? Could it be that he had been looking for something and was reluctant to make a choice? Humph! No matter how strong your spiritual power is, there must be something wrong if you can't light up a soul lamp. Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, and Qing Lianer were surprised, but they still didn't give up. Can't light up a soul lamp? Then open your eyes wide. At this moment, Lin Sun didn't hold back anymore. His spiritual power suddenly turned into a 3-inch little man, whose appearance was the same as Lin Sun's. He was tall and handsome, and his whole body was bright. The spirit of the spirit. However, because his spiritual power was too strong, almost no one could detect the existence of the spirit of the spirit of the spirit of the spirit. Buzz. The spirit of the spirit of the spirit walked in the void and waved his sleeve. A soul lamp in the void nearby was lit up. In an instant it was like a sun in the sky, brilliant and vast, like the sun at high noon. All the people were shocked. Demon Lin had held back before. His spiritual power was too strong. Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, and Qing Lianer were completely dumbfounded. They felt like 10,000 wild horses were galloping in their hearts. Before, they said with certainty that Lin Sun's spiritual power was deficient, so they ridiculed him to the extreme. Their hearts were full of pleasure and joy. But now they felt like they had been hit by a stick. They were so depressed that they almost coughed up blood. Who would have thought that the situation would be reversed? It felt as if someone had slapped him hard in the face, causing him to feel a burning pain. Demon Lin is obviously playing tricks on Sha Luchan. That's why he has been holding back and waiting for this moment to slap his face. Many strong people looked strange. They thought that Lin Sun was deliberately playing a pig to eat a tiger. He was waiting for this moment to strike and retaliate against Sha Luchan and his companions. Otherwise, with his current means, he would have already lit up a soul lamp at the level of like the sun at high noon. Why did he wait until now? This method was simply too despicable. Chapter 903. In the previous chapter, Ji Xingyao was mistakenly written as by Lingshi. What happened before was a lesson for the future. The crowd was secretly vigilant and decided to be on guard against Demon Lin in the future. This guy was not only fierce in combat, but also evil in heart. He was extremely insidious. If they were not careful, they might be trapped by him. Previously, the 5 overmatches of Zhongli family and Cyan Phoenix clan were deceived and thought that Lin's spiritual power was weak. Taking advantage of this opportunity, they couldn't help but attack Yu Jianming. Who would have thought that Lin's weakness was just a facade? When he suddenly broke out, the 5 overmatches directly suffered a tragedy. Even Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer were frightened and fled, as if their butts were on fire. Now Lin Sun played the same trick again. He pretended to be weak and kept silent from beginning to end as if he was fishing. However, Sha Luchan and the others were so eager for revenge that they jumped out in a hurry after being deceived. Of course, the result was another tragedy. The rhythm of this face-slapping was at the pinnacle of perfection, causing the crowd to feel pain for Sha Luchan and the others. Too insidious and black-hearted. Demon Lin didn't miss any opportunity to hit his opponents. But this time, they really wronged Lin Sun. After all, this was the 4th test. How could Lin Sun be in the mood to play insidious tricks with Sha Luchan and the others? This time, Sha Luchan and the others took the initiative to put their faces close to him and couldn't wait to slap him. He had to reluctantly slap them. Lin Sun, you are despicable. Sha Luchan and the others were so ashamed and angry that they shouted and their faces turned green. This guy was absolutely intentional. He was extremely insidious. Clearly, he had deliberately dug a pit in advance and was waiting for them to jump in. I'm despicable? Everyone here can see clearly that it's you who jumped out on your own initiative. Now that you've made a fool of yourself, you blame me for being despicable? How dare you call yourselves heavenly talents? Lin Sun sneered. Everyone was speechless. They really couldn't refute Lin Sun's words. Sha Luchan and the others were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. How could they expect that the dignified demon Lin was so insidious and black-hearted? In order to cheat them, he didn't even care about his moral integrity and bottom line. I've said it before. Summer bugs can't talk about ice, and you guys aren't even comparable to summer bugs. At best, you're just a bunch of clowns. It's laughable that you overestimate yourself. Lin Sun's voice was casual, but every word he uttered was like a knife, striking Sha Luchan and the others so much that they wanted to rush up and fight Lin Sun. To be honest, I couldn't be bothered with you from the beginning to the end, but you went too far and asked for trouble. Not satisfied? Then open your dog eyes wide and continue watching. As soon as he said that, everyone's hearts trembled. They had already lit up their soul lamps, so what was demonic god Lin trying to do? Even Sha Luchan and the others were stunned. Buzz. At that moment, the spirit of the essence soul continued to walk in the void. It arrived in front of a soul lamp and gently swept its sleeve. The soul lamp was like the sun, releasing boundless light. Everyone was stupefied and fell into shock. Lighting a soul lamp at the midday sun level was already world-shocking. But now, Fiend Celestial Lin had lit up another soul lamp amidst his laughter. He was similarly like the sun in the sky. This was too astounding. No one had ever heard that two soul lamps could actually be lit in the fourth level of the test. Moreover, such unprecedented phenomena had appeared in both of them. The crowd was shocked speechless. Even Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, and Luo Jiao were alarmed. They all swept their divine senses over. When they saw this scene, they were also a little shocked. Lighting up two midday sun-level soul lamps, this was absolutely unprecedented, unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. This guy must be doing this on purpose. Ji Xingyao gnashed her teeth. She was gloating before and wanted to see how Lin Sun would clean up the situation. But in the blink of an eye, this guy made such a big noise again. It was obvious that he was up to no good. I was wrong, Yu Lingkong thought. An inexplicable emotion surged in his heart, and there was a trace of uncontrollable killing intent. At this moment, he felt a kind of threat from Lin Sun, which made him very uncomfortable. A guy he had never taken seriously had shown his divine soul power that made him feel threatened. This was undoubtedly unacceptable to Yu Lingkong. He's really like a demonic god, Luo Jia said thoughtfully. Sha Luchan and the others were trembling all over. Their faces turned blue and white. It was a wonderful scene. They had an impulse to vomit blood. If they felt angry and aggrieved when Lin Sun lit up the first soul lamp, now they felt an unprecedented shame and indignation. This was a big blow. Thinking of their ridicule and provocation to Lin Sun just now, they wanted to find a hole to hide in. It was too shameful and humiliating. This is not Demon Lin. It's obviously Pit God Lin. An overmatch murmured. Pit God Lin? The crowd was stunned. This name was indeed appropriate. Pit God Lin was calm and composed when he tricked people. It was natural, unconstrained, and easy to trick people. It was almost like Tao. Sha Luchan and the others were stunned at this moment, which was pitiful and ridiculous. At this moment there were 5 soul lamps in the night sky. They were like suns hanging in the sky, resplendent and blazing, and they interweaved and illuminated each other. Among them, Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, and Luo Jia each had 1, and only Lin Sun had 2. However, to everyone's surprise, this was not the end. In the following time, Lin Sun's soul power became more and more magnificent, lighting up one soul lamp after another. Each soul lamp was like the sun in the sky, illuminating the universe. It was not only Sha Luchan and the others who were dumbfounded, but also all the overmatches present were shocked. They all felt it was unreal to witness an unprecedented miracle. This was truly unimaginable because such a thing had never occurred in the past. Just how powerful was Fiend Celestial Lin's soul strength? Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, and Luo Jia, these peerless figures, also couldn't calm down. There was a heavy pressure in their hearts. There was no doubt that in the fourth test, they were much inferior to Lin Sun. At this moment, Lin Sun was like a horse in the dust. Soon, there were 4 sun-like soul lamps in the sky, all of which were lit up by Lin Sun. In total, he had lit 6 soul lamps. If this was spread out, it was bound to cause a sensation in the world. After all, such a thing had never happened in every Tao discussion lantern festival in the past. But what puzzled everyone was that Lin Sun still didn't stop at this moment. In other words, even though he had lit up many soul lamps, he didn't choose any of them to accept the soul inheritance imprinted in them. What was he doing? Lin Sun was searching. He was looking for a soul lamp that suited him. But what made him frown was that he couldn't find one that satisfied him even though he could light up the soul lamp many times. At this time, his soul power had rushed to the highest point in the void, and many practitioners couldn't even perceive it anymore. High up in the void, there was not a single soul lamp to be found. Apart from the curtain of night, there was only nothingness. Lin Sun didn't give up and continued to rush up. Gradually, even people like Ji Xingyao found it difficult to capture Lin Sun's soul power because it was too far away. I'm afraid he has condensed the spirit of spirit. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to rush up to such a high point in the void. At this moment, many peerless figures realized that Lin Sun's cultivation in soul power had reached an unprecedented height. Otherwise, it would be difficult to achieve this step. The spirit of spirit. It was almost impossible to cultivate in the reincarnation developing realm, and it could only be seen in most old monsters in the king realm. But it was obvious that demon god Lin had achieved this step. The soul was like a lamp that illuminated one's body. The spirit was immortal, and the soul lamp was always bright. The strength of the soul power was the key to becoming a king. Now, all this undoubtedly proved that Lin Sun had the potential to become a king far beyond ordinary people. This made Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong pay more attention to Lin Sun, and they didn't dare to take him lightly anymore. Higher and higher Lin Sun suddenly felt an unprecedented exhaustion. He knew that this height had reached the limit of his soul power. Looking around, the void here was as dark as ink, empty, and there was a kind of oppressive silence. It seems that there is no more. Lin Sun felt helpless. Perhaps the level of, like the sun at noon, was already the highest grade of soul lamp. However, when Lin Sun was about to turn back, he suddenly realized a problem. The night was like a cage, covering the sky. Wasn't it also a kind of light? Below the void, the soul lamps were shining like the sun or like stars. But no matter how dazzling they couldn't completely dispel the darkness of the night. Lin Sun felt something in his heart. He no longer tried to find the soul lamps, but perceived the night sky with the spirit of spirit. After an unknown period of time, Lin Sun's spirit of spirit trembled. He felt a wisp of near-nothingness but extremely ancient and silent breath. Sure enough, he guessed it right. In an instant Lin Sun's heart shook. The spirit of spirit ran with all its strength and searched for the silent and ancient breath. In a trance, Lin Sun felt as if he was surrounded by endless darkness, and an ancient breath that made his soul feel oppressed spread out. It was as deep as the night and as empty as the darkness. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun saw a soul lamp. It was only the size of a baby's palm, and its entire body seemed to be cast from black immortal gold. It had a restrained, heavy, and ancient feeling, like a dark lamp that had melted into the eternal night. Darkness was originally depressing and desperate, but this lamp was the opposite. It seemed too unique, with a kind of magnificent, grand, solemn, and ancient atmosphere. That's it. Lin Sun had been searching for a long time. For the first time, he felt it strongly. What his soul force needed was this dark lamp that bloomed the light of the eternal night. Whoosh! Lin Sun's spirit of spirit leaped up and entered the dark lamp with his soul force. clatter as soon as he entered. An ancient and vast breath of inheritance rushed over like a landslide and tsunami, drowning the spirit of spirit of spirit of spirit. At the same time, circle after circle of strange ripples actually arose in the veil of night that covered the heavens and the earth, and it emanated an obscure fluctuation. Moreover, the soul lamps that were lit up in the sky started to sway along with the fluctuation, and they flickered in midair. The soul lamps swayed and the light poured out, which made the dark night more deep and empty. Chapter 904. Wisps of unspeakable obscure and mysterious Taoist sounds reverberated in his soul, like the chanting of ancient scriptures, full of indescribable magic. This was a kind of profound and pure Taoist feeling of soul inheritance. In an instant, Lin soon felt that his soul was transforming and growing, falling into a deep level of comprehension. Whoosh! Not knowing how long it had been, wisps of bright and dreamy clouds gushed out from the top of the spirit of Lin Sun's spirit, which was blazing and enshrouded. In the end, it condensed into an illusory flower bud. Before long, the flower bud bloomed, accompanied by bright and clear Taoist light. Pop, pop, pop. Each petal bloomed, giving out crisp and wonderful Taoist sounds, stirring the soul and making the spirit of spirit feel cleansed and sublimated to the extreme. In the end, the flower bud bloomed completely, and a misty rain of light gushed out from the stamen. It was snow-white and illusory, magical and extraordinary. It floated above the head of the spirit of spirit, sprinkling down rays of light like a waterfall, illuminating the spirit of spirit. In an instant, Lin soon keenly felt that his soul had transformed again, as if it had a little light of wisdom and awakened the memory of his original self. Every scene from birth to the present and every experience on the way of cultivation were like a picture scroll, reflecting in his mind. With the divine flower gathering, I can see the truth of the past. Lin Sun had a feeling of epiphany. He knew that the spirit of spirit condensed a divine flower, which was completely different from before. This surprised him. It was just a dark lamp that bloomed the light of eternal night, but the ancient soul inheritance imprinted in it allowed him to deduce the power of his soul to a new height in one fell swoop, which was incredible. This flower, originated from the soul, represented the cultivation of his original self in the past. Contrasting with it, Lin Sun had a lot of insight. Only then did he understand that in ancient times there were also realms of soul cultivation. They were the 6 realms of perception, divine sense, deity, divine flower condensation, astral projection, and divinity transformation. Perception was the initial stage of spiritual power awakening and beginning to perceive the world. Divine sense was the strength of the soul that only great cultivators at the spiritual ocean realm and above possessed. Here, one could clearly see through the phenomena of the heavens and the earth and comprehend the traces of the grand Tao. God represented the spirit of the soul core. It resided in the sea of consciousness, and it was capable of multitasking. It possessed boundless profundities and surged with the glow of wisdom. Just like Lin Sun before, he was in this situation. On the other hand, divine flower convergence was an even more profound and obscure realm of the soul, and it was divided into the 3 minor realms of seeing the past, seeing the present, and seeing the future. Every time one reached a new cultivation realm, a great Tao divine flower would condense above the head of the primordial spirit, and it would illuminate one's body alone. It possessed unimaginable profundities. As for wandering mind and transforming into divinity, they belonged to the soul realms of the divine path, which were too far away for Lin Sun to comprehend. He could only perceive a kind of concept, but could not get a glimpse of its true essence. To cultivate the soul is to see through life and death and find the root of longevity. The soul is like a lamp and the spirit is immortal. It can prolong one's life and live freely in the world. Birth, old age, sickness, and death can no longer trap one. For practitioners, the stronger the soul, the more profound meaning of heaven and earth can be comprehended and mastered, which has an immeasurable effect on seeking the way of Tao and the secret of immortality. It involves the secret of life and death, and is the key to becoming a king. In the future, when I set foot on the road of immortality and become a sage, it will have an irreplaceable magical effect. All kinds of enlightenment surged in Lin Sun's mind, and he felt enlightened and suddenly enlightened. Clang, with an ancient and drawn-out bell ring, the fourth assessment came to an end. All the strong practitioners who had lit up their soul lamps and were receiving the enlightenment of the soul inheritance were shocked, and their souls were drawn out of the soul lamps and returned to their own bodies. It's too fast. Why do I feel that it's over in the blink of an eye? Some practitioners looked stunned and hadn't completely awakened from the enlightenment. It's amazing. Through this enlightenment, I have a glimpse of the mystery of cultivating the divine spirit. I believe it won't be long before I can try to condense the spirit of spirit. Some practitioners were excited with joy on their faces. Obviously, they had gained a lot from the enlightenment. It's a pity that there's too much time. Otherwise, I'm sure I can comprehend more mysteries. There were also some practitioners who wanted to continue. At this time, Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, Loka and others also woke up from the enlightenment. They all looked different, but there was a touch of joy between their eyebrows. The quality of the soul lamps they obtained was first class, and the enlightenment they obtained was more mysterious. Moreover, the power of their souls had obviously improved and transformed during this enlightenment, and they had benefited a lot. By the way, where's Demon Lin? Which soul lamp did he choose? Suddenly, someone asked. Yes, according to my observation, he didn't choose any of the 6 soul lamps he had lit before. Suddenly, other strong practitioners also came to their senses. Earlier, Lin Sun had abandoned the 6 soul lamps, and his soul had soared to an extremely high place in the void, so no one could see if he had lit a new soul lamp. He must have failed. If he had lit a soul lamp, it would have definitely caused a shocking phenomenon. But from the beginning until the end, I didn't notice anything at all. Shaluchan sneered. Everyone's expressions instantly became strange. Hasn't this fellow been tricked badly enough by Demon Lin? He actually has the courage to deny Demon Lin at this moment. What's wrong? Why are all of you looking at me like that? Could it be that I'm wrong? Shaluchan felt uncomfortable all over, and his expression was slightly unsightly. That's the truth. If he had lit a soul lamp at the level of, like the sun in midday, I would have noticed it a long time ago. But since he arrived at an even higher place in the void, there hasn't been any movement. Based on this, I'm afraid he gained nothing in the end. To everyone's surprise, Yu Lingkong affirmed it at this moment. This caused everyone to be astounded. Demon Lin's soul was so heaven-defying, how could he have gained nothing? That should be the case. I've checked before, and there isn't a soul lamp at the very high place in the void, Ji Xingyao also said in a low voice. She didn't want to take this opportunity to attack Lin Sun, but she also felt very strange and puzzled. If Lin Sun had gained nothing, he should have returned to find a soul lamp that had been lit by him to accept the inheritance. But it just so happened that all 6 soul lamps were lit, and in the end, they became ownerless objects and were not occupied by Lin Sun. This was too strange. Even Ji Xingyao said so. The other strong people couldn't calm down. How could Demon Lin gain nothing in the 4th test? Others might have picked up a sesame and lost a watermelon, but at least there was a sesame. Lin Sun could have obtained a precious opportunity, but because his requirements were too harsh, he got nothing in the end. This was really a tragedy. Ha ha! Shaluchan was amused. After confirming Lin Sun's tragedy, he couldn't help but say, just now, 6 soul lamps were lit by him, and all of them were like the sun in the sky. How dazzling and unparalleled it is! Who would have thought that this guy missed all of them? Alas, you can't say that. This is also because Demon Lin has high standards for himself and disdains to seize the opportunity of the sun in the sky. Zhongli Wuji's words were full of mockery. Qing Lianer also said with a smile, "This is called fate making fools of people. If this matter is spread out, it will definitely be the biggest joke in the world. I'm afraid that no one in the world would have thought that Demon Lin would be reduced to such a state." The other heroes also didn't know whether to laugh or cry, not knowing what to say. "Is it really like this?" Bai Lingshi frowned. "Of course not." Yu Jianming firmly believed it. At this moment, Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, woke up and opened his eyes. A strange luster flashed in the depths of his abyss-like pupils. "What, you still don't accept it?" Lin Sun stood up and glanced at Sha Luchan and others with indifferent eyes. In an instant they all felt uneasy, as if all their secrets were seen through by Lin Sun at a glance. At the same time, other strong people nearby also keenly noticed that Lin Sun seemed to have changed into a different person. His temperament became more and more extraordinary, with a sense of emptiness. What? Many people were surprised. What was going on? But when they perceived carefully, they found that under Lin Sun's seemingly ordinary and extraordinary temperament there was a kind of unfathomable temperament, which could not be seen through at all. Sha Luchan and others' faces changed. Thinking of the previous scenes of being trapped by Lin Sun, their hearts rolled again and they almost cursed. However, out of caution and vigilance, they just sneered and didn't dare to say anything more. "Did you light up your soul lamp?" Ji Xingyao couldn't help asking. Lin Sun said with a smile, "What do you think?" Ji Xingyao raised her eyebrows. She hated Lin Sun's hateful smile the most. His self-righteous and deliberately mystifying look made people angry at first sight. In the end, no one knew whether Lin Sun had lit up his soul lamp or not. But many people noticed that Lin Sun was too calm without any frustration, which was very abnormal. It didn't seem that he was pretending to be calm at all. This was thought-provoking. Clatter, suddenly, the talismans in their hands glowed and produced a strange wave, which wrapped them up and disappeared in an instant. The fifth test was about to begin. At the same time, the outside world was also in an uproar. What? That fiend Celestial Lin lit up 6 soul lamps that were like the midday sun all by himself? Is he still a fucking human? He's a monster! Originally, Fairy Ji and others were destined to shine and become famous all over the world. Who would have thought that Lin Sun would suddenly appear and overshadow everyone's limelight? The uproar and exclamations went on and on. Those big shots were also moved. This time's soul lamp test was really different from the past. There was an unprecedented change. I heard that Lin Sun came from the mortal world and has not joined any sect yet. I'm interested in his talent and would like to make an exception to accept him as a disciple. A big shot stroked his beard and smiled. What a coincidence. Our sect has long taken a fancy to Lin Sun, and we're planning to recruit him after the end of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. All the big shots spoke up. They actually wanted to recruit Lin Sun. Everyone, stop fighting. Only by joining our Xianwen Sword House can a peerless figure like Lin Sun fully realize his potential. Even Granny Golden Crane spoke up. This scene shocked and dumbfounded the other cultivators. Wasn't Lin Sun too popular? Chapter 905. These great figures all had different forces standing behind them, and they represented the wills of the various ancient orthodoxies of the Western Heng world. It could be said that so long as one was chosen by them, then even if one was an idiot, it would be equivalent to a carp leaping through the dragon gate, and one's identity and status would undergo a tremendous change. Furthermore, Fiend God Lin was no fool. On the contrary, he could be considered peerless among elites, and his name resounded throughout the Western Heng world. In addition, Lin Sun came from the mortal world alone. Under such circumstances, any ancient orthodoxy would be happy to extend an olive branch to recruit a peerless talent like Lin Sun. I'll leave my words here. No matter what price I have to pay, I will bring Lin soon into the sect. He who doesn't know how to speak tough. Everyone, why do you have to do this? If we continue arguing over a mere demon god Lin, it will only harm the harmony between us. Those great figures argued to the point their faces were flushed red, and they were locked in a heated discussion. They were just short of rolling up their sleeves and fighting. The other cultivators present were so envious that their eyes turned red. Fiend God Lin was truly impressive. He made those ancient orthodoxies fight over him. After all, in the Westing region, the existence of ancient sects seemed to be like lofty and insurmountable mountains, and the conditions for selecting disciples were extremely harsh and abnormal. Every year, countless cultivators of the younger generation were rejected by these ancient sections. But now, these great figures from ancient orthodoxies had actually gotten into an intense dispute over demonic god Lin. This was something that had never been seen or heard of in the past. Speaking of which, Fiend God Lin does indeed have the qualifications to be so highly regarded. Just his performance at the Tao Exchange Lantern Meet alone is already outstanding and worthy of praise. Some Xiozha sighed and resonated with many people. In the first stage of the Tao discussion, Lin soon rushed up to the ice mountain of Fire Lotus alone. Under the hostile gazes of so many talents, he easily took a 9-petal Fire Lotus and flew away. In the second test, the Extreme Realm, he was suspected to win the first place and get a special reward. Although it was just a suspicion and could not be confirmed, according to various inferences, almost all the clues to win the first place pointed to Lin Sun. In the third test, he'd broken through on the floating sea and defeated Sha Luchan with a single move, shocking the latter to the point he had no choice but to dodge and flee in panic. In the fourth level, he'd even created an unprecedented miracle. He'd lit 6 soul lamps all by himself, and all of them were like the sun in the midday sky. They emanated boundless light, and they completely overshadowed Ji Xingyao, Yu Linkong, and the others. He could be said to be the most outstanding, which orthodoxy wouldn't be tempted by such a peerless figure that could be said to possess shocking combat strength, resources, and potential. It was no wonder that those great figures in the surroundings would disregard their bearing and argue with each other. No matter who it was, that person would probably be unable to sit idly by. Everyone, don't you know that this child is an enemy of the Black Sea Tengu clan? Moreover, he has offended countless people since his rise to power. Are you sure you want to take him as your disciple? Someone snorted coldly. It was a big shot of the Sea Shark clan. Exactly. Everyone, please reconsider. At the very least, my Azure Phoenix clan won't let go of the chance to take revenge on this kid. A middle-aged woman of the Azure Phoenix clan spoke in a gloomy voice. Most importantly, don't forget that when we were on the shore of the Fuchin Sea, Yu Linkong, Zhongli Wuji, Zhuoquanglan, Sha Luchan, and Qing Lianer, these peerless figures of the younger generation, have all made it clear that they would kill this kid when they arrived in front of the green lamp tree. Speaking of this, the middle-aged woman revealed a touch of disdain. It can be said that it's difficult to say whether this kid can walk out of Green Parasol Mountain alive or not. Suddenly, the atmosphere became much quieter. The eyes of the great figures flickered with different expressions, and they began to think about the pros and cons of taking Lin Sun as their disciple. This is the reality. Seeing this, the other practitioners nearby sighed in their hearts. Although demon god Lin was powerful, he had offended too many people. If they wanted to take him as their disciple, those ancient orthodoxies would have to consider and think about the possible consequences. Suddenly, someone sneered, you want to take him as your disciple, but you don't want to cause trouble and bear burdens. Isn't this equivalent to taking advantage of him? How can there be such a good thing in the world? As soon as these words came out, the faces of all the great figures from different orthodoxies became gloomy. Who was so bold to mock and ridicule them? All of a sudden, the whole area was silent, and the other practitioners were also secretly surprised. These words were extremely sharp, and they wondered who on earth dared to say such words. There was no need to search at all, and they recognized the owner of the voice at a glance. It was a young man in a black robe. His black hair was as smooth as silk and glittered, and his dignified and straight figure was like a spear that could pierce through the sky. He stood on the top of a short mountain with his hands behind his back, overlooking the whole area. His eyes actually surged with a terrifying scene of thousands of swords bursting out, and it was extremely frightening. "Young man, be careful of the trouble that comes from the mouth," an old man reprimanded. "What? I've poked your sore spot. Are you not convinced?" The young man's voice was indifferent, and a cold light burst out of his eyes that were as sharp as swords. "Old man, I also warn you, if you dare to threaten me again, you'll lose your life. You're courting death." The old man exploded with rage. He was from an ancient orthodoxy, and he could be considered to be a renowned figure. Yet now, he was reprimanded and threatened by a junior, and he instantly felt slightly embarrassed. "The 13th sword." The young man spoke indifferently. An old servant that carried a sword on his back appeared extremely far away in the distance. He was emaciated, had gray hair, and had an extremely indifferent expression. "Pooh!" Everyone felt something flash before their eyes, and then the old man's head was suddenly chopped off and tossed into the air. From the beginning until the end, no one was able to clearly see how the old servant had attacked. Everyone present was astounded, and the atmosphere was deathly silent. Even if it was Granny Golden Crane and the other great figures, all of their bodies stiffened while their hearts shook violently, and their expressions were extremely heavy. The old servant's expression was indifferent, as if he disregarded everyone present here. He turned around and arrived by the black-robed young man's side before standing there silently with his hands hanging by his side. The aura in his entire body was withered, and he was emaciated. He seemed to be extremely ordinary and inconspicuous, but everyone knew that the great figure from an ancient orthodoxy had been killed by this old servant. His movements were clean, and his head fell to the ground with a single strike. However, no one was able to discern exactly how he'd accomplished it. It was too fast. "Is there anyone else who's dissatisfied?" The black-robed young man spoke indifferently, and his voice drifted through the silent heavens and the earth. Everyone looked at each other, and no one answered him. Even an expert like Granny Golden Crane chose to remain silent at this moment. The black-robed young man seemed to be slightly disappointed when he saw this, and he said with flagging interest, "I'm Yi Chun from the Northern Dipper world. If anyone wants to take revenge, feel free to look for me in the Northern Dipper world." He turned around and was about to leave when he seemed to have thought of something, and he stopped and said, "If Fiend God Lin is able to walk out of Azure Parasol Mountain alive, please help me tell him that he's welcome to be a guest at the Northern Dipper world's Crepe Myrtle Mountain." As soon as he finished speaking, he swaggered off. Behind him, the old servant carried a sword on his back and followed behind him at a speed that was neither fast nor slow. From the beginning until the end, no one dared to stop him. "It's him. The most outstanding genius in the sword Tao of the Crepe Myrtle Mountains, Yi clan's younger generation, Yi Chun." The silent atmosphere was suddenly broken by an exclamation. Instantly, everyone was shocked. The ancient Yi clan was an extremely famous sage family in the Northern Dipper world. The clan had existed since ancient times and had produced several sages in history. To this day, there was still a living sage guarding the Crepe Myrtle Mountain. I remember now. This Yi Chun should be the genius in the sword Tao of the Northern Dipper world's younger generation, who's known as the Crepe Myrtle Sword Devil. Granny Golden Crane had a complicated expression. Yi Chun's reputation was not any weaker than Ji Xingyao and Yu Linkong's. In fact, it might even surpass them. Fighting alone in the Northern Dipper world, freezing 9,000 provinces with a single strike of his sword. A genius in the sword Tao that defies the heavens. This was the Northern Dipper world's evaluation of Yi Chun. Moreover, he was acknowledged by many ancient orthodoxies. He was definitely a monstrous existence. However, no one expected that such a monstrous existence, who was famous throughout the northern Dipper world, would appear outside Azure Parasol Mountain in the western Hung world. Could he be here for Fiend God Lin? Otherwise, why would he leave a message to welcome Fiend God Lin to Crepe Myrtle Mountain? Many cultivators were shocked. The words that Yi Chen left before he left made their imaginations run wild. "Young master, it's time to go home." On the way, the old servant reminded him softly. "Sword 13, don't you want to know why I did this?" Yi Chen asked. The old man smiled warmly. "Young master, there must be a reason for this." Yi Chen nodded. "That's right. Ever since I entered the Western Hung world, Fiend God Lin's name has been spreading everywhere. However, it's accompanied by many voices of slander and mockery. The funny thing is that these mockery are actually related to Fiend God Lin's background. That's normal. This kid came from a lower realm and has no one to rely on. He's all alone and rose to prominence too quickly. It's hard not to attract criticism," the old man said with a smile. "But I don't like it." Yi Chen frowned. "I deliberately watched from outside Azure Parasol Mountain to see what kind of person Fiend God Lin is. Now I have an answer in my heart. I'm very certain that he's an extremely outstanding and dazzling figure. However, it's such an expert that suffers all sorts of ridiculous criticism. It's truly infuriating." With that said, a disdainful smile suffused the corners of Yi Chen's lips. "Sword 13, you saw the faces of those so-called important figures. They want to take Fiend God Lin as a disciple, yet they don't wish to invite trouble. Their behavior is just too unsightly. So, young master, you plan on helping Fiend God Lin vent his anger?" "I'm not helping him vent his anger. I just don't like it." Yi Chen's body emitted an intimidating aura that was as sharp as a sword. "I cultivate to follow my heart. If I don't like it, it means that my heart is unhappy. If my heart is unhappy, why would I cultivate? Why would I comprehend any dharma? But there are many things in this world that don't go according to one's heart," said the old servant. "Then I'll slay them with a single strike." Yi Chen did not hesitate. His words were firm, just like his person and his sword. At the same time, Lin Sun and company appeared in an ancient forest of steels in Azure Parasol Mountain. The final test would be held in this forest of steels. P.S. The fourth update is here. Chapter 906. The steel forest was ancient and occupied a large area. There were about 1,000 of them. Every single stone tablet was coiled with vines and covered in moss, and they emanated a heavy and mottled aura of time. The world was vast, and the ancient steel forest stood tall. The atmosphere was solemn and quiet. This was the fifth test, and it was called Steel Forest Expounding the Tao. Every single stone tablet was branded with a profound and dense stone inscription diagram, and every single stone inscription diagram was formed from the traces of the Grand Tao. If a cultivator wanted to pass this trial, they would need to choose a stone tablet and comprehend and deduce the power of the Grand Tao imprinted within the stone inscription. Only those who were able to comprehend and grasp all of its profundities would be able to pass the test. To put it simply, this trial tested a cultivator's comprehension and understanding of the Great Tao. At this moment, there were less than 500 experts that had arrived before the steel forest, and it was only 5% of the total number of people that were participating in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Not even 10%. The other 95% of the cultivators had been eliminated in the first 4 levels of the Tao discussion, and this sort of elimination rate was truly too shocking. But there was no doubt that those who were able to arrive before the steel forest were all top-notch existences amongst the geniuses. Not a single one of them was weak. The true fortune of the Grand Tao is hidden here in the Tao Development Tablet Forest. Every single stone tablet is branded with the energy of a Grand Tao, and all of them are different. There aren't just 9 first-grade grand daos of the 5 elements, yin, yang, wind, and lightning, there are even numerous miraculous and rare grand daos. During the Tao discussion lantern meetings of the past, someone had once deduced the Tao of Void. It's extremely special, and it's capable of transforming into all things and passing off the fake as the real one. There's also someone that deduced the Tao of Ardent Blood. Even though it's only a 3rd-grade grand Tao, if it's utilized in battle, then it's capable of causing one's vital energy and blood to boil and erupt with combat strength that far exceeds one's cultivation. There's also the Chaos Whole Tao, Cloud Mist Tao, Tidal Tao, Illusory Domain Tao, and various other grand Tao. All of them possess their own might and different profound effect. The group of heaven's favorites stood before the ancient steel forest. Their eyes were heated as if they were staring at a treasure. If he could successfully pass this test, not only would he be able to reach the ancient path's green lantern tree, but he would also be able to obtain and master a type of great Tao energy. This wasn't an ordinary fortuitous encounter, it was fate of the Tao. Of course, if the deduction failed, then they could forget about obtaining anything and would be directly eliminated. In the Tao discussion lantern sessions of the past, even though this final test, the test of the steel forest of Tao development, wasn't dangerous at all, yet the elimination rate was the highest. The great Tao was hidden in different stone tablets, but not everyone could deduce it and grasp it in their hearts. On the contrary, comprehending the path was definitely the most difficult thing on the path of cultivation. It trapped countless shouja. This was related to one's own comprehension ability, and it was also related to one's fortune and luck. Is this the Tao engraved grounds left behind by the ancient saints? If it's really like that, then the fortune Master spoke of is definitely hidden within it. At this moment, Lorger, who had always been indifferent and elegant, was in a state of turmoil. She was from the Mi Luo Palace in the Earth Imperial Universe. Her sudden participation in the Lantern Discourse had already caught the attention and curiosity of many. People believed that she was here for the great fortune on the lamp of ancient path. But only she knew that she had come for this forest of steels. This time, I must find the opportunity within. Only then can I awaken the power of my bloodline talent. Determination appeared in Luo Jia's eyes. Headmaster said that this forest of steels is not simple. It hides the real Tao fate. I wonder if it's true. Ji Xingyao was lost in thought. Sure enough, the Azure Parasol Mountain is worthy of being a holy mountain in the ancient times. Maybe I'm right to come here this time. Yulingkong's eyes were clear, and there was a vague divine light surging in them. Not only them, but some other peerless figures were also in a state of turmoil. They came from different forces. When they came to participate in the Lantern Discourse Lantern session, they had already learned a lot about the secrets of this forest of steels. Naturally, they knew how amazing the Tao fate was. Even before participating in the Lantern Discourse Lantern session, they had already set their sights on one of the steels in this forest. This was the heritage of the inheritors of the orthodoxy. With the guidance of the elders, they could make preparations in advance, and they wouldn't miss the real opportunity because of carelessness. Lin Sun, you have to be careful. After you pass this test, you'll arrive at the Lamp of Ancient Path. At that time, those guys will definitely try their best to deal with you. Yu Jiaming warned Lin Sun. Lin Sun replied absent-mindedly. Because as soon as he arrived at this forest of steels, he felt a faint echo, and it caused the spiritual vein in his heart to fluctuate slightly as if it was about to awaken. This caused Lin Sun's heart to tremble, and all his attention was drawn to it. His spiritual vein was called the Devouring Abyss. When he was in Xiao Empire, it was rated as a first-class special talent. However, in addition to the immeasurable benefits it brought to Lin Sun in his cultivation, the spiritual vein had always been in a dormant state. Even Lin Sun himself couldn't see through its hidden secrets and power. But there was no doubt that the grand devouring abyss was very special. Otherwise, the peerless successor of the heavenly sword sect, Yun Qi wouldn't have killed his way into the lower realms by himself and didn't hesitate to kill his family in order to seize his spirit vein. As far as Lin Sun knew, Yun Qi also made rapid progress in cultivation by seizing the power of Lin Sun's spiritual vein. Now, he was known as the first sword practitioner in the ancient desolation domain and the first person below the king realm. Now, there was a brand new spiritual vein in Lin Sun's body. It was complete, white, and shining, but it had always been in a dormant state. Only when Lin Sun was exhausted and his body was in a dying state, would it emit a mysterious heat flow to help Lin Sun repair his body. Just like in the extreme realm, the second level of Tao discussion, when Lin Sun fought against the will imprints left by the practitioners, he tried his best but failed to win. At the most dangerous moment, it was the help of the spiritual vein that enabled him to break through the shackles of his limits and defeat his opponents in one fell swoop. Finally, he won the special prize of the first place, the infinite bottle of Tao discussion. But now, just as he arrived at the forest of steels, the spiritual vein produced a trace of strange movement for no reason, as if it was called by some strange power. How could Lin Sun not be surprised? Could it be that the power of the great way hidden on one of the steels in this forest could awaken the spiritual vein to a certain extent? Lin Sun was excited. Lin Sun, are you all right? Yu Jiaming was a little worried when he saw Lin Sun's absent-minded look. He thought Lin Sun was worried about something. Lin Sun was speechless and shook his head. I'm fine. Fine. I think you're worried that you can't protect yourself when you arrive at the green lamp tree. Sha Luchan snorted coldly in the distance. Lin Sun looked up and saw that Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer were all sneering at him. Obviously, after passing this level, they would arrive at the green lamp tree, which made them a little impatient. This time, Lin Sun really didn't want to pay attention to these guys. Since he'd participated in the Tao discussion, these fellows had been buzzing incessantly like flies all along the way, and Lin Sun had completely had enough of them. It wasn't just them who were impatient from waiting, even he was slightly eager to kill them. Clang! The ancient and leisurely sound rang out again, drifting among the ancient steels. Buzz, at this moment, the vines that coiled around the 1,000-plus stone tablets that were densely covered in the mottled aura of time and the moss that suffused the surroundings had all transformed into ash and fell to the ground. Then, each steel seemed to wake up from the silence of countless years. Obscure breath of the great way bloomed on its surface, fluctuating like ripples, covering the sky and the earth. The scene was amazing. There were too many breaths of the great way, densely packed and different. Some were blazing and wanton, some were cold and surging. There were also some that emitted sonorous cries and pierced into the sky. All kinds of obscure fluctuations of the great way, like scenes of visions, immediately attracted the attention of all the strong people present. Whether it was peerless figures such as Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, or other top talents, they couldn't hide their burning expectations at this moment. The Tao fate was about to be obtained in the assessment. At this moment, Lin Sun's chest suddenly became hot as if it was burning. On the 4 acupoints of his heart, a piece of jade-white spiritual vein emitted strange fluctuations and flowed with a holy glow. It seemed to be cheering and yearning for something. Lin Sun realized that if he could seize the opportunity this time, it was very likely for him to unveil the mysterious veil of the spiritual vein and peep into its essence. Swoosh! A figure rushed out violently. Some strong people couldn't bear it any longer and rushed towards the ancient steel forest. Let's go! Hurry up, don't let others occupy it. The other strong people moved out almost at the same time, and they rushed to be the first. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Fighting was prohibited in this Tao discussion. If they didn't take the initiative, it was very likely that the steel they took a fancy to would be taken by others. Therefore, even peerless figures such as Ji Xingyao didn't dare to be negligent, and they took action as soon as the bell sounded. whoosh. At the same time, Lin Sun had already used Ice Drake steps, and his figure rushed out like a flowing light. His speed was so fast that it shocked the other strong people. But soon, Lin Sun stopped, and there was a strange look on his face. He felt that the wisp of fluctuation that caused the spiritual vein to awaken from silence came from a stele at the edge of the forest, which was extremely eye-catching. But similarly, this stone stele at the edge was directly ignored by most strong people. The reason was very simple. According to the secrets and news they had, combined with what had happened in the past Tao discussion lantern meetings, they all knew that in this forest, on the stone stele at the edge, almost all the power of the Great Way was very ordinary, and the quality was very low, so it was not worth paying attention to. On the contrary, the deeper one went into the forest, the stronger the power of the Great Way hidden on the stele was, and the more extraordinary the quality was. Therefore, the strong people almost rushed to the depths of the forest like a swarm of bees. Lin Sun had also learned about the secrets of this stele forest from Bai Fenglu. This was what caught him off guard. He never thought that the thing that caused the spiritual vein to awaken was actually a stone stele at the edge of this forest. Chapter 907. Wasn't it said that the power imprinted on the outermost steles in the stele forest was almost all ordinary? Lin Sun stood there with a strange look on his face. At this time, the crowd had rushed to the depths of the stele forest. Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong had already found the stele they wanted. Only a few overmatches like Lin Sun were wandering around the periphery of the stele forest. This was normal. Although there were thousands of steles in this ancient stele forest, not everyone could deduce and comprehend the power of the Great Way imprinted on the stele. It could even be said that the more first-class the power of the Great Way was, the more difficult it was to deduce. Without superb comprehension and talent, it was impossible to comprehend and control it. The overmatches here were all top figures. They all had a clear understanding of themselves. They knew that the most important thing was to choose the most suitable one in this stele forest. If they were too ambitious, they might be eliminated. However, when they noticed that Lin Sun was standing outside the stele forest without any further action, those practitioners who were wandering around the periphery were still surprised. They subconsciously thought that a peerless figure like Lin Sun should rush into the depths of the stele forest to compete with Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong. But now, it seemed that he didn't intend to do so. Instead, he wanted to find a stele outside the stele forest to perform the Great Way, which was very unusual. Is it because Demon Lin knows that his comprehension is not good enough? Someone wondered. Soon, someone retorted, "Shut up. His comprehension is not good enough? Don't be kidding. Comprehension is related to the soul. Demon Lin's soul power can easily light up 6 soul lamps at the level of the sun at noon. How dare you say that his comprehension is not good enough? You must be out of your mind. Be careful, everyone. I suspect that Demon Lin is going to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger and dig a pit to bury people," someone reminded. Suddenly, many overmatches had a strange look on their faces. They suddenly realized that Demon Lin should be called Pit God Lin at this time. The overmatch who suspected that Lin Sun's comprehension was not good was sweating all over and his heart was pounding. Just now, he almost took the initiative to jump into the pit. This demonic God Lin was simply too sinister. At this point in time, instead of fighting for the Tao fate, he wanted to dig a hole to harm others. It was simply impossible to guard against. It was no wonder that they thought so. When Lin Sun lit up the soul lamps, they thought that Lin Sun deliberately showed his weakness and caused the 5 experts from the Cyan Phoenix clan and the Zhongli clan to be eliminated. High up in the sky, he was mocked by Sha Luchan and the others because he couldn't light up his soul lamp. But in the end, Demon God Lin had unleashed his invincible might and lit up 6 soul lamps in one go. Sha Luchan and the others were so shocked that their faces turned green, and they almost vomited blood. They were stunned on the spot, and they looked so embarrassed that they wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. But now, Lin Sun, a peerless figure, wandered around the periphery of the steel forest, which inevitably aroused people's imagination. "Humph! You're still planning to trick me? Save it. Do you really think we're idiots who would fall for your tricks again and again? You're also a peerless figure, but you're so sinister and devoid of integrity. Don't you find it embarrassing?" In the distance, Sha Luchan and the others also noticed this scene. They flew into a rage, subconsciously believing that Lin Sun was clearly targeting them. This demon god Lin seemed to be addicted to it. He had already tricked them previously, and now he was repeating the same trick. It was too old-fashioned. They would not fall for it again. Clearly, they had been traumatized by being tricked. They were very sensitive, and when they saw Lin Sun do this, they subconsciously believed that he was tricking them again. What else could Lin Sun do? He was truly innocent, but he couldn't be bothered to explain. Seeing Sha Luchan and the others' flustered and exasperated looks, he was secretly amused. What a bunch of fools! Xingzhenzi, the successor of the great Zen forest temple in the sacred retreat of the Big Dipper realm, is right. When the true prodigy honor roll appears, most of the so-called prodigies in this world will be swept away by the wind and rain, and their title of prodigy will be removed. And from Lin Sun's point of view, Sha Luchan and the others were an insult to the title of Chosen One. Ignoring the strange gazes around him, Lin Sun paced to a stele at the edge of the steel forest. This stone tablet was gray and dull, standing there in a slanted manner. It was marked with the marks of time, and upon closer inspection, there was a stone diagram carved on it. However, the markings were too sloppy, giving off a messy and disorderly feeling. Compared to the other stone steles that were emanating obscure fluctuations and revealing profound phenomena, this stone stele seemed to be too ordinary, and it was like a piece of abandoned stone. In the periphery of the steel forest, many steles looked like this, old, mottled, and ordinary. But when Lin Sun stood there, the spiritual veins in the 4 acupoints of his heart vessel seemed to be on fire, emitting extremely bright holy white light, making Lin Sun feel a burning and tingling pain in his chest. This is it. Lin Sun took a deep breath, sat cross-legged on the ground, and looked at the mottled and ordinary stele. Some attentive overmatches noticed Lin Sun's movement and were all stunned. Was demon god Lin really going to deduce an ordinary stele? Didn't he want to set a trap for others? This guy always wants to take an unconventional path, to be unconventional and different from the masses. I think he'll definitely dig a hole for himself just like he did with his soul lamp. Sha Luchan and the others snorted. The overmatches also looked complicated. Indeed, when Lin Sun lit the soul lamps last time, he didn't take possession of the 6 soul lamps, but he had to look for better ones. In the end, he ended up with nothing. This made the overmatches feel sorry for him. What about this time? Would demon god Lin repeat the same mistake? The atmosphere soon returned to silence. The steel forest was silent, and the atmosphere between heaven and earth was solemn. The test had begun. All the overmatches had gone through many dangers to reach here, so they naturally didn't want to be eliminated in the last test. They looked focused and began to deduce the mystery of the stele with all their might, seizing every minute and second. This stele can't be solved. Damn it, this stele is so ordinary that I can't deduce its mystery. Is it really because my understanding is too poor? I advise the latecomers not to choose this stele, or it will be too late to regret. Lin Sun was about to take action, but his eyes were attracted by the lines of handwriting on the ground in front of the stele. Those handwriting styles were very different. It was obvious that they were not written by the same person, but the content was full of negative emotions such as unwillingness, despair, anger, and confusion. Obviously, in the past Tao discussion lantern meetings, there were also talents who wanted to uncover the mystery of this stele, but without exception, all of them ended in failure. And failure meant elimination. There is a big secret here, but it's a pity that I can't see it. My understanding has long been the best among my peers. Who would have expected that I would be stopped in front of this stele? Fate, fool! When seeing this line of handwriting, Lin Sun's eyes suddenly narrowed. This must be a peerless figure who realized the extraordinariness of this stele. But in the end, he was still defeated. For a moment, Lin Sun was a little uncertain. This was the 5th test of Tao discussion and also the last test. If he encountered obstacles at this time and was eliminated, he would never be able to reach the ancient path green lamp tree. Should he choose this stele or not? Lin Sun hesitated. Suddenly, he groaned and felt that his chest was getting hotter and hotter, and there was a tearing pain. His spiritual vein became more and more dazzling, as if it was about to rush out of his chest. Those strong people didn't crack the power of Tao in this stele before. Maybe it has nothing to do with the level of understanding, but they lack a kind of luck. Lin Sun suddenly realized that this stele in front of him might be specially left for the strong with the talent of devouring abyss. Otherwise, why would his spiritual vein have such an abnormal reaction at this moment? Well, anyway, I'll try my best. It's my luck to get it, but it's my fate to fail. Lin Sun took a deep breath, got rid of the distractions in his mind, and became calm both physically and mentally. In an extreme state of emptiness, Lin Sun spread the power of his soul and covered the stele. On the stele, there was a messy and mottled stone inscription, like the scribbles of a 3-year-old child. But as soon as Lin Sun's soul touched this picture, he only felt a bang in his mind, and in a trance, he saw a strange picture. In the vast world, a thin old man with scraggly hair, a haggard face, and a thin figure was running wildly in the mountains and rivers. He stumbled as he walked, but every step he took made the world roar, and all the things in the mountains and rivers tremble. Time changed, and the world changed. It seemed that thousands of years had passed in an instant, but the old man was still running wildly, between heaven and earth, in the mountains and rivers, without stopping. Later, he stepped on the clouds, ascended to the sky, rushed out of Zhou, and ran wildly in the vast starry sky. With one step, thousands of galaxies were left behind. Even the Big Dipper was nothing more than this. Who was he? What was he doing? Lin Sun was shocked. This old man must be a saint with supreme power, or even more terrible than a saint. He took the galaxy as his road, and with one step, the Big Dipper was gone. In this process, time passed, everything changed, the sun set and the moon set. Lin Sun didn't know what day it was, and all the scenes were in a trance and chaos. But the figure of the old man was still not obliterated. Time couldn't wear him down, and space couldn't stop him. He was still running wildly. He seemed to be seeking something, and also seemed to be fighting fiercely. Yes, it was like fighting. Every moment was like facing a formidable enemy, so close and crazy, which made Lin Sun's heart tremble, and he felt a kind of unspeakable tension and depression. Boom! Suddenly, the old man's figure stopped. There was only an expanse of nothingness before him, and it was boundlessly vast and completely empty. In an instant, a terrible light burst out of his body, as if it was burning, making the starry sky behind him tremble. Looking from a distance, he was like a big abyss, which seemed to swallow everything with boundless horror. This was Lin Sun trembled all over. The breath of the big abyss, the old man, like himself, had the power of the spiritual vein,